The Green Goblin of Gotham wants to become a hero. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1. Harry stood in front of the grave with a blank expression and a stiff body, listening to the mourning of men and women around him. This was the funeral of his father, Norman Osborn. This was really weird. The young man with the golden brown hair pressed his chest with his right hand. Not long ago, he was wearing the Green Goblin's equipment and fighting side by side with Peter. Then he was pierced through the chest by the two swords on the front of his skateboard. It was really painful. When he came to his senses again, he was already sitting by his father's bed. His father was not as energetic and elegant as he remembered. He leaned against the head of the bed, looking paranoid and sad. Was it a hallucination before death? I never thought I would die like this. Harry stared blankly at his father, who appeared weakly in front of him. He thought, maybe he missed him too much? He should have gotten used to hallucinations about his father. Looking at my son, but like looking at a stranger. The hallucination of his father was still saying incomprehensible words. Harry wanted to say something. I miss you so much. I'm sorry for failing your expectations. I'm not a qualified son. I'm going to die too. I'm sorry, Dad. I missed you so much. I'm sorry. But he couldn't say anything. He sat there passively, listening to his frail father continue to speak words that were so strange to him. You have great potential, Harry. You have a very high IQ, and you're wasting it. No, you abandoned me. Harry heard himself whispering back, and then strange memories suddenly flooded into his brain. It was not until his brain nerves were compressed and painful that he finally realized that everything in front of him was not an illusion. He came to a world where his father was not dead yet. The memories of another Harry Osborn took root in his brain and merged with him tightly. His father's indifference and neglect as a child, being thrown into boarding school at the age of 11 and then being ignored, receiving a bottle of whiskey with a courtesy card from his father on his 16th birthday, and now, he is 20 years old. In nearly 10 years of lonely life, he indulged, squandered, and depraved, wantonly torturing his body, will, and soul, but even when he was sent to the emergency room, he did not wait for even a glance from his father. I didn't see him again until he was dying, my father. Harry's heart was surging with anger. He couldn't control it. He hated the despair brought by his father. He was angry that he still expected his father's love until now, even if it was only a little, even if he had never been responded to. No. Harry resisted the strange memories and strange emotions. He was sure that Norman Osborn, his father, loved him, Harry Osborn, from the bottom of his heart. Harry's hands couldn't help shaking. He thought he was too excited, but in fact it was far from that simple. Retroviral hyperplasia. Retroviral hyperplasia. The genetic disease of the Osborn family, the culprit that caused his father to lie dying in front of him, and this disease has begun to appear in him. The father, who was weak due to the pain, held his shaking hand weakly. His father might think that his disease was just the beginning, Harry thought self-deprecatingly. Harry, who had obtained all the memories of another self, knew that his condition was far more serious than it appeared. His tight black turtleneck sweater covered the abscess on the side of his neck and the hideous scar on his chest. This is my unfinished business, Harry. Norman Osborn waited for his son's return with one breath. He had only one expectation for Harry. I failed, but you still have a chance to succeed. If you are ready, go find Bernard. Harry didn't even react, and his father's hand had slipped from his hand. Dad, he whispered to the silent man in front of him, but he never got a response. I lost you, again. Why did he give him such a cruel fate? Harry crawled to his father's body with red eyes and hugged his father's still warm body tightly. Harry opened his eyes, tears falling one after another. He wanted to cry and wail, but there was no one who would feel sorry for him, so he sobbed softly. Norman Osborn, the founder of Osborn Corporation, passed away yesterday afternoon. The relevant people have confirmed the news. Since its establishment, Osborn Corporation has been committed to overcoming various difficult and complicated diseases, especially in genetic diseases. It has achieved outstanding results, saving millions of lives and almost subverting human medicine. At the same time, as the founder of Osborn Enterprises, Norman Osborn has made great contributions to Gotham in both public welfare and urban construction. Gotham City News is urgently reporting the death of Norman Osborn. The morning newspaper also inserted this news overnight. The brunch table of the Wayne family. Norman Osborn is dead? I remember he seemed to be less than 50 years old. Tim put down the cup of milk with coffee in his hand and picked up the newspaper that Alfred had placed next to him. Afu looked at the cup of milk that was obviously the wrong color, and after thinking for a while, he swallowed a blame in his mouth. Yes, Master Tim, you remember correctly, he is 48 years old. He even attended the seminar of the Osborn Group half a month ago, and he seemed to be in good health at that time. Bruce yawned and appeared at the stairs. He obviously knew the news. Life and death are always the most unexpected, Master Bruce. Afu glanced at the bandage wrapped around Bruce's chest. Bruce tightened the belt of his pajamas and said helplessly, Afu, it's just a minor injury. Maybe you're right, at least you stood in front of me this morning. Tim silently picked up the cup of milk coffee that didn't fit in with the others and drank it quickly, then changed the subject. The shareholders of Osborn Group will not be able to remain calm without Norman Osborn's pressure. That depends on Mr. Osborn Jr. Bruce picked up another newspaper. The gossip entertainment newspaper that always printed his photo on the front page printed another young man's photo today, with the title The Return of the Heir to Osborn Enterprise After 10 Years. The young man in the photo pushed open the car door and stepped out of the car expressionlessly. The sun shone on his pale skin, and the carefully groomed golden brown hair seemed to be flowing with warm light, and his gray-blue eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of morning mist. The photo shooting technique is good. He casually praised the photographer, and then turned his attention to the content of the news. Harry Osborn, the heir of the Osborn Group, ran away from home due to a dispute with his father Norman Osborn. He has never set foot in Gotham for 10 years, and returned again on the eve of his father's death. According to insiders, Harry Osborn attended a party with his French supermodel girlfriend before boarding the plane back to Gotham. Entertainment news. Bruce was obviously not interested in the daily life of teenagers. Entertainment newspapers may also have news worth discovering. Tim recalled the entertainment section in the past. For example, the statistics of Bruce Wayne's girlfriends in half a year. We can know how many girlfriends you have changed in half a year, and those gossip reporters definitely know better than you do. It would be great if it were true. Alfred still held the expectation that Master Bruce might bring back a mistress for Wayne Manor, but every time he held this expectation, there was always another voice in his heart that refuted himself. Alfred, don't dream. Chapter 2. On the night when Norman Osborn was announced dead, the batlight on the roof of the Gotham Police Department shone on the large dark clouds in the night sky. Gordon stood by the batlight as usual, waiting for his mysterious old friend. What happened? A low voice suddenly appeared behind Gordon, and Gordon tensed up and relaxed. Do you have to be so elusive? Gordon complained casually. Anyway, he knew very well that Batman would not change. Someone is missing. Gordon took out the information in the file bag and handed it to Batman. A homeless man came to the police station a week ago to report that his friend suddenly disappeared. There are too many homeless people in Gotham. They have no fixed place to live and basically have no relatives. In addition, Gotham is seriously divided, armed conflicts are frequent, and large and small illegal organizations are recruiting everywhere. It is difficult for the disappearance of a homeless man to attract the attention of the police. But this time someone called the police. The police tried to investigate the homeless man's movements. He was last seen at the rescue center set up by the Osborn Group, where he received a lunch. After meeting his friends, he disappeared in an alley in the East District that was not monitored. Gordon introduced the case. Originally, Gordon would not ask Batman for help to solve such a simple and insignificant missing person case. After all, maintaining Gotham's law and order was originally the job of the Gotham Police Department. But this time, after these days of investigation, we found that it was not just this homeless man who disappeared. Batman happened to find the corresponding information. In the past 2 years, marginalized people have disappeared near that road almost every month. However, the Gotham Police Department and even Batman did not notice it at all. This is the most terrifying thing. That's right. The early surveillance footage is almost impossible to find. These are all confessions collected by the homeless man who called the police. Can you guarantee that they are true? It's too long ago and I'm not sure, but the disappearance records in recent months can be confirmed after investigation and comparison. The data lists the last images of people who disappeared in recent months. 7 months ago, It was a 13-year-old boy who dropped out of school after his parents died and ran away from the home of his adopted relatives. After wandering for a few months, he disappeared in the East District and no one called the police. 6 months ago, it was a 60-year-old man who lived in a bridge hole and had no children. He also disappeared in the East District. 5 months ago, it was a streetwalker in her 30s who usually only had guests coming and going. After she disappeared, no one cared. The frequency of almost one person disappearing every month, but more than one person disappears in Gotham every month. Why are these people singled out? Almost all of them have physical defects. The boy had his leg broken because of theft, the old man had a broken arm, and the streetwalker had one eye blinded by a fierce guest. Gordon said in a heavy tone. He could not deny the darkness of Gotham, nor could he protect everyone in Gotham all the time. He couldn't do it, Batman couldn't do it, no one could do it. Each of them could only try their best. The homeless man who disappeared a week ago was in the best physical condition. He fell down the stairs and broke his left arm. Are there no other clues? A young and slightly impatient voice suddenly appeared behind Gordon. Gordon skillfully adjusted his position. Now not far to his left stood the tall and majestic Batman, and not far to his right stood Robin, who was not even as tall as his chest. Before this homeless man disappeared, he told his friends that he had found a job and would introduce him to a job if he was reliable. The case situation has been basically introduced. In fact, the information provided by Gordon contains as detailed case information as possible. Batman has already scanned it back to the Batcave while reading it. Alfred and Red Robin, who has not had much work at Titan recently, will study the information in the Batcave. Batman and Robin will patrol at night and look for clues. Batman returned the information to Gordon, and Gordon put it back into the file bag. This case, where are the people? Well, he should have gotten used to it. Batman and Robin jumped among the high-rise buildings in Gotham. They were rushing to the East District of Gotham. From time to time, Red Robin's voice sounded in the inside line. If the missing people are all physically disabled, then I have to think of some weird habits or targeted human experiments. Batman and Robin were silent. Batman didn't have much to say, and Robin was too lazy to pay attention to him. After a while, since the scope of the missing people covers men, women, young and old, tall and short, fat and thin, the possibility of weird habits is minimized. Red Robin, you'd better stop talking nonsense. Oh, sorry, did I open the inside line? Tim's tone was particularly perfunctory. TT. After solving a burglary, a gang fight, and 2 highway robberies along the way, Batman and Robin came to the alley where the disappearance occurred the day before yesterday. This alley is sandwiched between 2 inconspicuous commercial streets. The back doors of many shops are opened on this road, and garbage is basically piled here. This is not easy to check. These shops are basically private, or they are backed by gangs. Maybe each shop has some secret business. Moreover, the missing cases are too scattered in terms of population and time, and there are almost no clues. He needs to find out what the missing people have in common, except that they all have some physical defects. As if guessing what Batman was thinking, Red Robin's voice appeared in the inner line again. I just counted the daily activity information of all the missing people that can be confirmed. The only intersection of their behavior is something you will never guess. There was silence in the inner line. Okay, I know you will never guess that they all went to the rescue station set up in the center of the East District after being injured. The one set up by Osborn. There's more than one rescue station in the center of the East District. In addition to the one set up by Osborn, there is also one set up by Wayne opposite. Therefore, the Batcave's supervision of the vicinity is more stringent than other places in the East District. This means that Tim has found these missing people from the surveillance at the door of his own rescue station. It's not just the last 7 cases that the police have surveillance footage of. Tim pulled up all the surveillance footage from the Bat computer. All the people who have gone missing after becoming disabled in the past 2 years have all been to Osborn's shelter. Batman and Robin looked at each other. Looks like we have to go to Osborn's place. Robin was eager to try. The Osborn sent an invitation to the funeral. I think you need this. Alfred's voice appeared in the channel at the right time. Oh, I saw the time on the invitation. It's Tuesday afternoon. I have to say, I'm sorry. Tim teased Damian. Tuesday afternoon is the time when the strongest Robin needs to go to class, and Batman will never allow him to skip class. Red Robin will go with me. Batman's unique voice finally appeared. As expected. Chapter 3. The funeral was carried out in an orderly manner under the arrangement of the butler Bernard. Most of the invited guests wore black suits to attend Norman Osborn's farewell ceremony. The Osborn Group and the Wayne Group had many business dealings. In addition, Norman Osborn was a successful entrepreneur. It was not excessive for Bruce Wayne and Timothy Drake to attend the funeral together. They each held a black umbrella and stood in the crowd of mourners. The butler of the Osborn family held a black umbrella and stood at the front of the crowd with little Osborn. They listened to the eulogy in silence. Harry could not feel the reality all the time. His father with a pierced abdomen and his pale, thin and scarred father appeared alternately in his mind. They did not speak, but just stared at him with scrutinizing eyes. Even standing at his father's funeral for the second time, he still found it difficult to accept his father's death. Was Osborn really cursed? Whether it was Osborn in New York or Osborn in Gotham, Norman was destined to die tragically, and Harry was destined to die young. The funeral was quiet and solemn. Whether the people present were sincere or not, they all wore masks of mourning on their faces. Harry had experienced the same scene before. He knew that no matter how kind and amiable the people around him looked now, most of them would become completely ugly after he inherited the company in a few days. Except for him and Bernard, no one was really mourning for his father's death. Strange men and women kept coming to him, or patted his shoulders and pretended to be reliable elders and said some polite words, or put on false regrets on their faces and said some seemingly sincere words of comfort, but in Harry's opinion, their eyes were all flashing with greed that could not be hidden. Harry felt very sick, and his stomach, which had not eaten properly for several days, was cramping and wanted to vomit. It shouldn't be like this. This was not the life he imagined. After graduation, he would try to find a job he liked. If he couldn't find it, it didn't matter. His father would never leave him alone. Then he would pursue the girl he liked, like Mary Jane, or whatever. Anyway, there would always be plenty of opportunities to experience the sweetness and sourness of love. At the right time, he will marry the person he loves with the blessings of his relatives and friends. He will have his own children and take over the Osborn Group under the guidance of his father. The retired father may take his children to the amusement park to play bumper cars. But in fact, not long after graduation, his father died. He took over the Osborn Group in a hurry. In order to make some achievements, he supported some not-so-appropriate research, and finally lost his reputation. He put on the clothes of the Green Goblin, tried to kill his best friend, and threatened Mary Jane. He indulged his anger and helplessness. The only choice he made was probably death, which protected his best friend and ended his indifferent life. His right hand began to tremble uncontrollably again, although Harry did not try hard to control it. He calmly accepted the fact that he had a genetic disease and was not afraid of death, that he didn't know when it would come. Bernard stood on Harry's right and he clearly felt Harry's shaking right hand. Master Norman had been like this before. At first, it was cramps, followed by skin ulcers, and then internal organs decayed. Bernard's heart tightened. Master Harry was still so young, why did he seem to be unable to control his grief and choked out a sob? This was almost unbelievable for a professional butler. Similarly, Bruce Wayne and Timothy Drake, who were standing near them, also noticed Harry Osborn's trembling right hand. The two of them did not line up to visit the only heir of the Osborn family like queuing to see rare animals. Their original intention of coming here might be to investigate and test something, but when Bruce saw the lonely and thin young man buried in the crowd, he suddenly realized that this was a funeral held by a suffering child for his flesh and blood relatives. At least at this moment, he should respect the host of the funeral. White flowers surrounded Norman Osborn's tombstone. Harry watched as people in black suits offered flowers and condolences one by one, and then turned away without any nostalgia, while he continued to stand there expressionlessly. This time, there was no Spider-Man who could be hated by him. Harry thought with a smile in his bitterness. He didn't have to live with a desire for revenge, but what else could he desire? He clearly had two heavy memories of his life, but his soul was so empty that it was about to leave his body and float away at any time. Bernard, let me be alone for a while. Harry's voice was almost inaudible. Since the death of old Osborn, Harry has never spoken a word. He stayed alone in the dark room in silence all day long. The butler meals were almost always returned as they were. In just a few days, his healthy face turned completely pale and haggard. Bernard looked at Harry worriedly. Although he cared about Harry's health, who could refuse a child's request to stay alone for a while at his father's funeral? Then I'll wait for you outside. Bernard followed the crowd out of the cemetery. Mr. Bernard Halls. The bodyguard in black pushed a man with a disability to wait for Bernard at the entrance of the cemetery. His tone was subtle and his expression was sad. Bernard smiled politely. Mr. Mike, I'm glad to see you're still healthy. Mike, who was sitting in a wheelchair, seemed to have a distorted expression for a moment, and then quickly returned to normal. Of course, compared to my old friend who just passed away, at least I'm alive. Bernard was a steady butler. He could completely ignore the verbal provocation of the man in front of him, but thinking that this kind of ridicule might be heard by Harry one day, how sad his sensitive young master would be. If he was not Osborn's butler, perhaps he could punch the man in front of him on the nose. Glad to see you so optimistic. Bernard warned himself to remember to maintain the face of the Osborn family. Mike didn't seem to want to talk anymore. I just kindly reminded you not to forget to notify little Harry to attend the company meeting the day after tomorrow. Of course, he will go. The company that Master Norman founded, he will help Master Harry keep it. Bruce and Tim stood not far away pretending to chat, but in fact, the two of them were using the black technology produced by Batman to eavesdrop on the conversation between the butler of the Osborn family and the shareholders of the Osborn Group. It sounds like they don't have a good relationship. Tim chose his words carefully. In fact, he wanted to say that they sounded like they had a grudge. The black-clad bodyguard had already pushed Mike out of the cemetery. Bruce walked towards Bernard, and Tim followed behind. Mr. Bernard, good afternoon. Bruce greeted the butler of the Osborn family normally. Bernard also returned to his normal tone and put away his sharp emotions. Mr. Wayne, Mr. Drake, it's an honor for you to come today. We are all very sorry about the death of Mr. Osborn. He is a respectable man. Bruce has always believed that Norman Osborn is a rare good man in Gotham, but now he has to question it. Master Norman will be very happy to hear your evaluation. Tim glanced in the direction of the cemetery with concern. Young Mr. Osborn doesn't look well. Harry was standing in front of the grave alone with his back to them. Compared with just now, his posture and position have not changed at all. Master Harry just finds it difficult to accept the departure of the master. Bernard seemed to be staring at Harry's thin back in a trance, and his tone was not abnormal at all. But Bruce noticed the sadness in butler Bernard's eyes. Alfred seemed to have had such an expression after his spine was broken by Bane. Perhaps something bad happened to Harry Osborn. Bruce couldn't help but test it. I hope Mr. Osborn will get better soon. Thank you very much for your concern for Master Harry. The butler's words were flawless, but this was as it should be. Bruce and Tim's mind simultaneously appeared Alfred's figure, and they thought at the same time, Alfred will do better. Strictly speaking, this observation was not fruitless. Osborn and the shareholders of the Osborn Group did not seem to have a good relationship, and Mr. Mike might be planning to take advantage of the death of old Osborn to do something. But from another perspective, they knew that the shareholders of the Osborn Group were not easy to deal with. It was not difficult to predict that Mike wanted to take the opportunity to sideline Harry Osborn and completely control the entire Osborn Group. The important thing was what he was going to do, and who was the mastermind behind the disappearance of people in Gotham in the past 2 years. The sun sets, and the golden sunlight sprinkles on the dark green grass. Today is a rare good day in Gotham, but Harry doesn't have any special feelings about it. Gotham is a completely unfamiliar city to Harry. Even in Harry Osborn's memories before he was 11 years old, he rarely finds more information about this city. He can only make a superficial comparison with the New York in his memory. By the way, this world has no New York, no Queens, no Spider-Man, and no Peter Parker, his best friend. Harry doesn't know whether he should be happy that he doesn't have a masked hero friend in this life, and he doesn't need to worry about it. Gotham is as prosperous as New York, and perhaps it is not as safe as it seems. Osborn in New York develops weapons and sells arms. He is the largest weapon supplier for the military, while Osborn in Gotham seems to have made great achievements in biomedicine because of his family's genetic disease. Harry didn't have much research in biomedicine. He was more familiar with the research and development of weapons. He and Peter were both students of physics at the Imperial University. After graduation, he inherited the Osborn Group. In order to better develop Osborn and not be looked down upon by others, he learned as much as possible about weapons in a short period of time. Unexpectedly, he was quite good at it. After injecting the human enhancement potion left by his father, during his time as the Green Goblin, The weapons carried by the Green Goblin were not only those left by his father, but also more of his own research. Even after the Green Goblin's skateboard was damaged, he could repair it by himself. The pumpkin bomb developed by his father was too powerful. The heat energy generated after the explosion alone could instantly evaporate the entire mass of all nearby organic life forms. He didn't want to hurt others by mistake, but only wanted to catch Spider-Man for revenge, so he made a pumpkin bomb belonging to the second generation of the Green Goblin, which was more difficult and less powerful. Harry flipped through his memories aimlessly, but the large wound on his chest was stinging under the friction of his clothes. It was a different pain from being pierced through the chest by a sword. It was dense and there was nowhere to escape. His genetic disease has developed to a very serious stage, not just the initial stage of nerve twitching. Before his father died, he only knew that his hands would shake, but he didn't know what kind of broken body his tight clothes covered. The real Harry Osborn in this world has died of this disease, and the terminally ill body he left behind has no time to crack this genetic disease. Harry is sorry for his father's expectations, but all he can do now is wait to die. Chapter 4. Harry Osborn appeared in public again at the Osborn Group meeting 2 days after the funeral. This biomedical company at the forefront of the United States was undoubtedly founded by old Osborn, but he still had two other partners, Mike and Donald, for research funds and even similar interests. The two of them together hold 40% of the shares of the Osborn Group. But in the final analysis, Osborn still has the final say in the entire company. And today, the 20-year-old Harry Osborn will inherit this huge company according to his father's will. Harry sat at the head of the conference table. The lawyers were introducing his inheritance to him. The other two shareholders sat beside him with smiles. Harry listened absent-mindedly to the considerable amount of property left by his father. His palm accidentally knocked on the right side of his neck. A piece of artificial skin found in his father's room covered the abscess on the side of his neck caused by a genetic disease. The things left on the thick list of property, the real heir has disappeared, Harry thought sadly. These do not belong to him. By the way, Harry interrupted the lawyer who was talking non-stop, while everyone is here, I think I should make my own will as soon as possible. Will? Everyone present looked at each other in bewilderment. Making a will for himself at the age of 20? He doesn't even have an heir. The lawyer took a deep breath. Of course, Harry, do you need to look at the next schedule to determine the time to make a will? Harry inherited a lot of property, not only company shares and real estate vehicles, but also all the laboratories under Norman Osborn's personal name, the equipment, medicines, research materials, experimental records in the laboratory. The latter is as important as the former. The arrangement of these things needs to be as detailed and cautious as possible. Besides, Harry Osborn doesn't even know the situation of these properties. How can he make a will? No need to look, it will be here at 8 o'clock in the morning 7 days later. Okay. Harry had inherited a company once before, with a comparable scale. Although the business directions of the two companies are completely opposite, no matter what they are doing, the company's business model and methods are completely interchangeable, and the old people who were eager to make a move at the meeting were completely shocked. They investigated this 20-year-old youth. He had a cold relationship with old Osborn and had not even studied anything related to economics in college. Logically, even if he knew nothing about company affairs, he should not look so good at it. Of course Harry could. Bernard had already introduced the details of the company to him in advance and handed Harry a list of senior personnel in the company who were loyal to Norman. In this case, how could a person who had been the CEO of Osborn Group in another world go wrong? Since Harry is now in a very unstable stage of life, that is, he may die at any time, in order for Osborn's industry to play its due role after his death instead of being taken by someone, it is necessary to find a good destination for these properties. Harry originally wanted to use all his inheritance to set up an Osborn Foundation for medical charity after his death, but what kind of dragon's den is Gotham with a united front? Exclamation mark. The government above and the criminals below. The situation in Gotham is more complicated than Harry expected. Harry looked through the basic information of all the public welfare organizations in Gotham that Bernard had collected for him. In this thick stack of information, more than half of the public welfare organizations were basically empty shells, dedicated to illegal money laundering. Another half were invested and built by the government. Politicians use this to win people's hearts for fame and public support. It would be good if they could keep winning people's hearts. Unfortunately, after achieving their goals, they would never spend a penny more on public welfare. There were also some that really wanted to do good things, but most of them went bankrupt for various reasons, and the ones that survived became vassals of the above two types. After checking the information all the way, Harry found that there was only one company in Gotham that was as firm as a rock in doing charity at all times: Wayne Group. Bruce Wayne spends an astronomical amount of money on Gotham's public welfare every year. Harry, who had experienced a lot of information poisoning and almost lost confidence in Gotham, was like seeing a warm wooden house in a blizzard when he saw Wayne's information. Harry quickly plunged into a new round of information ocean. He sat at the desk and turned on the computer to check all the information related to Wayne. 2 hours later, Harry took off the blue light blocking glasses that he had put on for long hours in front of the screen and frowned. Bruce Wayne, an unexpected playboy. The computer screen stopped at a photo of Bruce Wayne. The man in the photo was tall and strong, completely different from the rich and powerful men Harry usually saw, and even different from everyone Harry had ever met. But no matter what he looked like, it had nothing to do with Harry. Harry silently scrolled back the page, trying to find some reliable information in the useless gossip. Maybe I am also the type that becomes more attractive as I get older. Harry tried to imagine what he would look like in his 30s. It should be no different from now, with sharper facial contours, deeper eyes, more mature words and deeds, and a body that is not as thin as it is now. Maybe he will be as elegant as his father when he was young. All the assumptions stopped when Harry's right hand began to tremble again. The age of the two heirs from birth to death combined is not as good as any Norman Osborn. Harry stopped turning the mouse wheel. The combined ages of the two heirs from birth to death are not as old as any Norman Osborn. This is not right. Harry tried to read the memories of another self in his mind. The Osborn family genetic disease had never occurred so early before Harry, so why did Harry's disease come so violently and unexpectedly? The memories of another self were too dark and depressing. Harry closed his eyes and saw the flickering lights of the bar, the people dancing wildly around him, and the empty bottles lying around him. What else? Harry tried to see more: the smoky party, the man lying on the ground foaming at the mouth and twitching all over, and the blue crystal in the glass bottle handed over by a hand. Ling. Harry was awakened by the sound of a computer email. He subconsciously looked at the screen. The sender was Bird, a bad friend who had gathered around him in the past 2 years. I asked someone to send the things to you at Old Jack's bar. Remember to pick them up tonight. Comma, the attached address is a remote bar in the East District of Gotham. Things? Harry just started to think about what Bird sent him, and the next second the blue crystal in the glass bottle suddenly popped out of his mind. It seems that I have to go to the East District tonight. Harry's rapid deterioration in health may be related to this thing. Playboy himself also sat in front of the back computer and quickly flipped through the information. After a few days of investigation, Batman has completely mastered the information of all the businesses near the alley where the disappearance occurred. Unfortunately, they have nothing to do with the Osborn Group. Tim stood beside him with a cup of coffee. If there was no evidence that the only intersection of the behavior of all the disabled and missing people was the rescue station under the name of the Osborn Group, I would even suspect that we are targeting the wrong person. Batman's face was solemn. He turned on the newly installed hidden surveillance near the crime scene and began to investigate the surveillance of the past 2 days. This time the criminal had been hiding under his nose for 2 years, which made Batman particularly anxious. The personal information and bank statements of all employees in the rescue station opened by the Osborn Group in the center of the East District have also been investigated, and there is nothing abnormal. Tim continued to report his fruitless investigation results. In fact, if they still can't find any clues, Batman has decided to secretly investigate all the suspicious places. He even thought of disguising himself as a homeless man with a broken leg and going to Osborn's shelter next month. However, these methods are too inefficient. Batman watched the video playing at 20 times the speed, and suddenly paused and rewound a few seconds. Found it. The surveillance video played by the supercomputer stopped at noon today, at a bar in the corner of the dark alley. A man in shabby casual clothes pushed open the door of the closed bar and walked in. After hearing Bruce's voice, Tim consciously moved next to him. Is this man the bodyguard of Wheelchair Mike? You and Robin will patrol tonight, and I'll go there to check the situation. Chapter 5. To be honest, Harry had never been to such a simple bar. The old wooden bar and chairs, all the corners that were difficult to clean were filled with dust and dirt. Cheap second-hand smoke and deafening music filled the whole room, and there was only a tall and thin man in an ill-fitting tuxedo as a bartender behind the bar. The guests in the bar even looked as old as the bar. Looking at their casual and old clothes, Harry was glad that he took off his handmade suit and chose the most ordinary casual clothes in his wardrobe. Despite this, he was still clean and out of place here. Although Harry came here to take the things that were deposited here, his intuition told him that the reason why the things were deposited here must be that there must be something special here. So Harry did not take the things and leave immediately. A glass of beer. Harry saw that most of the guests ordered beer, so he ordered one casually. Although the legal drinking age is 21, no one here obviously cares about this. As Harry sat at the bar, fiddling with a glass filled with brown liquid and covered with white foam, observing the entire bar environment, Bruce Wayne, disguised as a middle-aged man, also walked into the dark space. Harry, wearing a black turtleneck sweater and a black half-length windbreaker, should have been perfectly hidden in the darkness, but the young man's tall and thin figure and well-groomed golden brown hair stood out among the gray men, and Bruce's eyes were almost instantly attracted to Harry. Why is he here? You can't expect Bruce to be attracted by any good qualities of the young man. He is investigating Gotham's 2-year missing persons case, and the most serious suspicion is focused on the Osborn Group. This bar may be their important base for crime. At this moment, Harry Osborn, the young heir of the Osborn Group who has just returned to Gotham, appeared alone in a dark bar in a chaotic neighborhood that he should never set foot in his life for almost no reason. There is definitely something wrong with Harry Osborn. Bruce almost immediately began to suspect the young man not far away. He pretended to pass by Harry casually and sat down at the corner of the bar. From this position, he could clearly observe the actions of little Osborn. Little Osborn looked like he had just come in not long ago, and he didn't seem to have drunk a single sip of the beer in front of him. Bruce casually ordered a large glass of the cheapest dark beer here, sat with his eyes dull and his shoulders shrugged. He looked like an ordinary man who was no longer young and frustrated. His peripheral vision was lingering on Harry, and a hidden action headset was attached to his ear, always paying attention to the voice that might come from Harry Osborn at any time. Harry recalled the name of the bar owner mentioned in the email, and casually said to the bartender who was not busy, "Is Old Jack here?" Harry's voice came from Bruce's headset. Old Jack was the name of the owner and the bar information. Obviously, little Osborn came here for a purpose. "Little sir, are you looking for our boss?" The bartender's turbid dark green eyes seemed to suddenly stick to Harry, but he quickly put away his strange expression. "Are you Mr. Osborn who just returned to Gotham recently?" Of course, I am." The bartender turned around and took out a thumb-sized glass bottle from the interlayer of the wine cabinet, which was half filled with sky blue crystals. "The boss said this is for you. You can take it directly when you come." The bartender looked around cautiously, and when no one was paying attention here, he stuffed the small bottle into Harry. Of course, Batman saw it. After being recognized by the bartender, Harry gave up the idea of getting information. He clearly felt the bartender's vigilance. Perhaps it was because the people here were originally xenophobic. Harry didn't touch the glass of wine in front of him. After taking the thing, he put it in the pocket of his windbreaker and turned to leave the bar. Drive the Batmobile nearby. Bruce looked at Harry who was leaving. He needed to know what was in the glass bottle that the bartender gave to little Osborn. "Look what we found." Harry walked in the chaotic dark alleys of Gotham's East District in his leather shoes. 3 strong men wearing black stains similar to motor oil blocked his way. A lone boy. They approached Harry step by step with sharp daggers in their hands. Harry once again felt the danger of Gotham. He should have listened to Bernard and brought 2 bodyguards. After all, there was no spider in a jumpsuit swinging around at night in Gotham. "Do you want money? I can give it to you." Harry took out his wallet and pulled out a stack of large denomination bills from it. 3 men who looked like robbers had approached Harry. Harry's calmness seemed to annoy them a little. The man standing in the middle waved his rough hands and slapped the bills Harry held in front of them. The black and green $100 bills were scattered all over the ground. Not a robber? Or it was not a sudden impulse to rob him. There were only 4 of them in this dark alley. Harry doubted that no one would care even if he called for help. He had retreated to the wall and was surrounded by 3 robbers. "Young master, we want more than just this." Chapter 6. Bruce didn't expect that he would be robbed just when he changed his clothes. Although it was unexpected, it was not impossible to happen in Gotham. However, Osborn was surprisingly calm. The black cape-like batwings quickly passed through the night sky of Gotham. Batman was rushing to the place where Osborn was robbed at the fastest speed. Harry Osborn was gasping in pain in the headset. Although Batman didn't see what happened, he could roughly imagine it by the sound in the headset. When the robbers refused Osborn's money and tried to do something to him, Osborn attacked one of the 3 robbers, but Osborn's hands were not as good as his courage, so he was captured by the robbers and even covered his mouth. The bug completely lost the signal after a sharp buzzing sound, and Batman sped up calmly. Harry was pinned to the ground with his hands tied behind his back. One robber covered his mouth tightly, another robber pressed on him so that he could not move, and the remaining one was slashing his black sweater with a knife. This kid is really worth money. What does that mean? Someone paid someone to do him? Harry panted rapidly, and his black windbreaker was sloppily thrown on the muddy ground. He could not see the expressions of any of the robbers, but he could hear their increasingly heavy breathing due to excitement. The tip of the knife occasionally scratched Harry's pale skin covered by his clothes, bringing out a string of warm bloody red. Who will save him? Harry's eyes were red. He missed the powerful power when he was the Green Goblin. Even if the rest of his life was bound to the devil-like illusion, he didn't want to be slaughtered like a frog that fell into cement slurry. The sharp dagger slashed his clothes again and again, and Harry's vision gradually blurred. No one will come to save you, Harry saw himself. They will kill you like they killed me. Harry saw himself start to laugh. Ho ha ho 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 ha ho ha, look at you, is my body still working? Harry saw himself crying. I don't want to die, Harry, don't let their dirty hands fall on me, Harry, give me revenge. He began to hallucinate again, but the difference was that in this hallucination, it was himself who forced him to take revenge, not his father who was almost cut in half. Batman arrived quickly enough, but it was not timely. When he jumped down from the tallest building on the side of the alley, he saw a thin young man with his clothes almost completely cut trying to get rid of his uniform by dislocating his arms. Because of Harry's sudden struggle, the sword pierced into his arm unexpectedly. Their strength was too different. Even if Harry broke his arm, he couldn't break free from the restraints of the 3 people. He was almost desperate. Anyone would do. Come and save him, Spider-Man. At this moment, heavy blows and screams came from above Harry. He felt that the power that restrained him had completely disappeared. When his arms were loosened and fell on the cold floor tiles, Harry looked in the direction of the fighting sound with a fuzzy consciousness. A man wearing a large black cape and a black half-face mask was grabbing a robber and throwing him against the wall. Batman. The first man who was knocked down shouted in shock after getting up from the ground, and immediately threw the dagger in his hand and prepared to run away. Harry lay on the ground and picked up the dagger thrown to him and threw it at the robber who was about to escape. Although his strength was almost completely gone, his throwing technique was still terrifyingly accurate. Unfortunately, the dagger that was thrown out had almost no power, but because it was sharp enough, he successfully cut the robber's leg, but that was all. The robber continued to run away as if he was not injured at all, and did not even give Harry a glance. Unfortunately, Batman, who had dealt with the 2 robbers, chased after him the next second. Although he was wearing heavy armor, Batman's speed was still many times faster than that of ordinary people. The robber who was caught up fell to the ground in fear, and was knocked unconscious by Batman without any will to resist. Harry got up from the ground with a stiff body. His consciousness was still groggy. It seemed that his brain was lacking oxygen because his mouth and nose were covered for a long time. He vaguely saw the man called Batman walking towards him, and he seemed to pick up the black coat stained with the mud that was thrown on the ground. Batman. Harry chuckled. Do masked heroes like to be named after animals? Batman, Spider-Man. Harry's black turtleneck sweater was almost cut into a beggar's outfit. A large area of his pale skin was exposed to the cold evening breeze of Gotham. The cut skin was bleeding. Under the dim street lights, the thin blood lines looked like blood-sucking worms crawling on his body. What was even more terrifying was the abscess on his chest, a large area of turquoise abscess. Against the pale and thin body of the young man, the abscess looked like a nest of snakes and worms hatching. You shouldn't come here at night. Batman's low and hoarse voice surrounded Harry's ears. As he spoke, he handed the black windbreaker in his hand to Harry, who was stunned. Thank you. Harry took the clothes a little late. He wanted to throw it away directly, but there was something in his pocket. Batman's eyes stayed on Harry, or more precisely, on his bare chest. There were white eye patches on the mask, so Harry certainly couldn't notice where Batman's eyes were looking, but he still pulled at the tattered clothes on his body uncomfortably. Harry, You are as weak as a white dove with broken wings. Is this you? No. Harry angrily refuted the hallucination, standing next to Batman with a mocking face. I mean, my car is parked 2 blocks away, I will go back by myself. Harry backed away from Batman, casually put on the windbreaker to cover his embarrassed appearance, and then ran away in a panic. Whether they were criminals or not, many people would run away in fear when they saw him. Batman was used to it and even welcomed it, but was Osborn too late to realize it? Red Robin was already nearby, so Osborn would not be in any danger. Batman put the transparent blue crystal in his right hand, which he had taken out of the bottle in Osborn's pocket, into his universal belt, and then led the 3 robbers to the Batmobile. Chapter 7. Harry was very glad that his car was still intact for the time being. He fell into the car, his injured arm limply resting on the steering wheel. The knife wound on his arm began to sting, as if he had suddenly woken up in the warm car. Warm blood slowly slid down his pale and cold skin, and the blood flowed through his skin like a reptile crawling over his body. Sometimes having power is not a good thing, especially when the person who has power is named Osborn. Harry sat quietly in the car and breathed slowly. His father released the demon in his heart after injecting the strengthening potion, and turned into Spider-Man's #1 enemy, killing many people. He inherited his father's title of Green Goblin, and also inherited the evil thoughts that were no less than his father's. But sometimes losing power is even more devastating. Harry looked at his powerless body covered with scars. He lost his super recovery ability and the power that could rival Spider-Man, leaving only the paranoia in his heart. He would find out the person who killed Harry Osborn and then let him go again and again. In the hallucination, Harry's hideous face was pressed against the car windshield. His eyes, red with anger, stared at Harry sitting in the driver's seat through the glass. I won't. You will let the person who killed me go just like you let Spider-Man go. You coward. I won't. Harry sat up and shouted in retort. The hideous hallucination outside the car window suddenly disappeared. Harry breathed a sigh of relief. He fell back into his seat again and looked at himself in the rearview mirror inadvertently. His eye sockets were red, and the skin near the temple of the right eye socket melted into a cigarette-butt-sized sore as if corroded by strong acid. His condition worsened. There was not much time left. He had to avenge Harry and arrange a way out for the Osborn Group. He wanted Osborn to be praised forever in Gotham. None of them was easy, and he didn't have much time. After returning to the Batcave, Batman took out the transparent blue crystal in the universal belt and began to examine it. Why did Harry Osborn appear there? Tim was watching the video footage brought back by Batman's equipment. He must have a problem. Damian took off his eye mask. Father, I can be responsible for checking the Osborn family's villa tomorrow. Damian, you should go to rest. School is closed tomorrow. Batman, who was concentrating on the inspection of the unknown chemical in front of him, obviously forgot that today was Friday, your morning exercise. Osborn might be the one to go, but Batman would not let Damian go alone. The test results came out faster than expected. Bruce, who took off his mask, looked at the test report with a serious expression. The blue crystal synthesized by this chemical has a high degree of overlap with a drug component that is extremely harmful to the body, but the purity is much higher than that drug. Compared with the drug, this blue crystal only has an additional substance of unknown composition. He won't take it back for his own use. Tim guessed uncertainly. Harry Osborn does look not very healthy. The surveillance footage Tim was looking at happened to stop at the scene where Osborn said no to Batman in a gloomy tone. The dim light made Osborn's eye sockets turn red and black. His tattered clothes could not hide his thin body without any muscle lines. He looked like he was in poor health. There are indeed many upper-class people in Gotham who take drugs, but most of them take drugs that are not addictive and do not cause much harm to the body. The saying that the richer the person, the more he cherishes his life is absolutely true. And this crystal is simply the product of 10 times of purification of ordinary drugs. The degree of harm to the body is definitely more serious than all the drugs on the market, not to mention the remaining unknown ingredients. Don't forget what our current goal is. Bruce picked up the coffee and took a sip. Missing people. To be honest, it is not their turn to care whether Harry Osborn takes drugs, but this drug that has long been banned from circulation has returned to Gotham in a more dangerous posture, and it is indeed worth investigating. Bruce is very active and has begun to collect the recent drug distribution channels. Oh, yes. Tim yawned, and took a big sip of the coffee beside him. It happened in the East District. Maybe we should ask Red Hood if he has any clues. Bruce paused for a moment while operating the keyboard, but did not respond. Harry returned home at nearly 3 in the morning, or rather, returned to the empty and dark villa. Bernard was no longer young. He was even 2 years older than Norman Osborn. Harry guessed that Bernard should be sleeping in his room at this time. Harry did not want to alarm Bernard and make him worry about him, so he pushed the door in very gently. But unexpectedly, Bernard was sitting on the sofa in the living room of the villa, flipping through a notebook. The warm golden light of the floor lamp shone obliquely on the butler. Harry stopped in the shadows where the light could not reach, like a child who had made a mistake and was afraid of being discovered by his parents. His calm eyes began to turn red again. Under the warm golden light, the butler seemed to have suddenly turned the empty villa into a warm home. Harry's anger and dark thoughts, which were as hard as ice, seemed to be soaked in sunshine and honey, and melted in the blink of an eye. Bernard, Harry's voice was muffled as if it was stuck in his throat. Bernard, who was sitting on the sofa and carefully flipping through his notes, looked up at Harry. Harry hid a black windbreaker in his hand behind his back, and the torn sweater and bloodstains on his body were completely exposed. Damn it, he shouldn't have taken off this damn windbreaker. Bernard seemed relieved to see Harry standing there intact. He took off his glasses on his nose, stood up and walked towards Harry. Master Harry, maybe you can do it for the sake of the old butler next time. Oh, God. As the distance between Bernard and Harry shortened, he finally saw Harry's embarrassed appearance. The neat and slim turtleneck sweater now hung on Harry like a ball of wool tangled together, and there were scabs of blood on his exposed waist and abdomen. Bernard quickened his pace and stood completely in front of Harry. Master Harry, on your chest, that's... Bernard's hand trembled as he pushed aside the remaining sweater fragments on Harry's chest. The green pustules that were exactly the same as those on Norman's body appeared before Bernard's eyes. This is impossible, my master, you are only 20 years old. Harry slightly bent down and rested his head on Bernard's shoulder. He said in a muffled voice, Bernard, I'm sorry. Bernard felt the slight warmth and moisture on his shoulder through his shirt. He put his hand on Harry's back and patted him gently. There will be a way, Harry. Bernard took out the medical box and carefully treated Harry's wound. These are the special medicines developed by your father. Because the cost is too high, they are not sold publicly. Hiss. Bernard was disinfecting the most serious knife wound on Harry's arm. If it was his previous body, he would have recovered to the point where there would be no scars. Bernard, before my father died, he said that he would come to you if I was ready. Harry began to divert his attention. Did he leave anything for me? Yes. Bernard continued his actions. Master Norman left all the data he had studied about the genetic disease of the Osborn family throughout his life, as well as a semi-finished cure. We should restart the research, Master Harry. Bernard handed Harry the notebook he had just flipped through. This is Master Norman's speculation and assumption about this disease. Harry used his uninjured arm to casually open the notebook, and the first page of the notebook clearly stated, based on the research on the illness of the heirs of the Osborn family, it can be determined that the health of the body will affect the manifestation of genetic diseases, and serious deterioration of physical health will cause the onset of the disease to be advanced. At the same time, after the genetic disease begins to manifest, mental oppression and emotional collapse will accelerate the maturity of the genetic disease. So, the person who hired the 3 robbers wanted him to suffer setbacks, mental breakdown, and then die of the disease. There was also Bird, who suddenly approached him 2 years ago. In order to make his father worry, Harry followed Bird to try many things that were harmful to his body, especially the small glass bottle in the pocket of his windbreaker. It was a very strong drug. After Harry got it, he immediately recalled the effect of this thing. If he took a little more, he would immediately twitch and foam at the mouth and fall to the ground. Harry was instigated to take it not long ago. It was fine when he didn't remember it, but after remembering it, Harry's body was already clamoring for the bottle of medicine. Obviously, they had been secretly planning to send him to death for 2 years. Why did they suddenly change to a more drastic method today? Is he so anxious to let him die because he is about to make a will? Who could it be? Who knows that the Osborn family has a genetic disease? Mike and Donald, the other 2 shareholders of the Osborn Group, as well as the researchers who assisted Master Norman in studying genetic diseases, and perhaps a few senior executives of the group. There are a lot of people, but those who want him dead are indeed all after his property. Harry doesn't have time to investigate them one by one to find out who is the mastermind behind the scenes, so he can only find a way to make them come to him. Berna, clean up the beachfront villa tomorrow and send invitations to all the supermodels in Gotham. We are going to hold a swimsuit party the day after tomorrow. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8. In order to persuade Bernard to agree to this ridiculous party, Harry told Bernard about his thoughts on someone behind the scenes attacking the Osborn family, and at the same time told Bernard about his plan to lure the snake out of its hole. Master Harry, you have to know that Master Norman's funeral has not even been over for a week. Anything you do at this time will be magnified countless times by the media. I can't imagine how they will accuse you. It doesn't matter, Bernard. Harry paused. I grew up in accusations. Bernard recalled that before Harry was 11 years old, he always tried to get close to Master Norman but was rejected every time. At that time, Master Harry was obviously wrong to the point of red eyes, but he always said that he didn't care at all. In my eyes, you are the child who deserves all the praise in the world. Although it doesn't seem to fit the atmosphere now, time is tight, and Harry asked hesitantly and expectantly, what about the party? Yes, I will arrange it. The swimsuit party was completely handed over to Bernard. Harry was only responsible for appearing at the party unscathed, and then sunbathing on the beach with his swimsuit beauties. The news that the Osborn family sent out party invitations to supermodels in a high-profile manner spread throughout Gotham very quickly, especially to the ears of all those who were watching the situation of the Osborn heir. These people included irrelevant people who were ready to watch the excitement of the Osborn family. There were many bigwigs in Gotham who were ready to wait for Osborn to fall so that they could share a piece of the pie. They also included news media of all sizes, whose entertainment sections were already rubbing their hands in anticipation of reporting the absurdities of little Osborn. More importantly, these people definitely included the masterminds who were secretly targeting the Osborn family. In an underground laboratory in Gotham, a man in a black suit was reporting what he had heard to a man sitting at a laboratory table and checking a drug experiment report. Harry Osborn has invited many people to a swimsuit party tomorrow. The man who was concentrating on the lab report suddenly looked up and asked in an incredulous tone, swimsuit party? Yes. What was the result of the operation last night? It failed. The 3 homeless people I hired nearby were discovered by Batman before they could take action. They are now locked up by the GCPD, but the drug that can trigger the genetic disease of the Osborn family has been delivered to little Osborn. He took it once and it is impossible for him to resist the temptation. Little Osborn has been under their surveillance for the past 2 years. Although they have not seen the abscess marks on little Osborn's body that indicate the onset of genetic diseases, his body has indeed become weaker day by day. However, if you don't see little Osborn's illness with your own eyes, you can never be completely relieved. The man sitting there silently began to assume the probability that little Osborn was fine. Unfortunately, the result was half and half. Little Osborn might not care about the abscess marks on his body at all, so he held a swimsuit party without hesitation, but he was more worried about another possibility, that is, little Osborn was healthy from beginning to end. Most of their knowledge about the genetic disease of the Osborn family came from Norman Osborn, and the accuracy could not be guaranteed at all. Even the drug that claimed to be 100% able to cause the genetic disease of the Osborn family was difficult to determine whether it was effective. He pounded the table with his fist in anger. Keep a close eye on Harry Osborn tomorrow. I want to know whether he has developed the disease or not. The seaside villa of the Osborn family includes a large private beach. As the private domain of the Osborn family, only those who are invited can enter. But Harry's purpose is not to hold a completely private party. He needs the media to publicize what happened today to ensure that the mastermind behind the scenes will definitely get his news. Therefore, Harry openly sent an invitation to the Gotham Daily and suggested in the invitation that they send some hot beauties to participate. Mr. Bruce Wayne, the behind-the-scenes controlling shareholder of the Gotham Daily, received this unique invitation. Anyway, the invitation does not specify the gender of the beauty, right? Osborn's party starts at noon, which is the best time of the day in Gotham, and you won't feel cold in a swimsuit. On the day of the party, Alfred appeared at Bruce's door at 10 o'clock in the morning and started his wake-up service. Mr. Ryan, a reporter from Gotham Daily, your field work will start soon. Bruce turned over in his soft double bed. Alfred. Batman went to investigate the other two shareholders of the Osborn Group last night. After that, he went to the suspicious little bar in the East District, but found almost no suspicious traces. Don't forget your identity today. A hot beauty will not stay in bed. Bruce was completely awake. This was the first time he was invited to a party held by another playboy. If Harry Osborn was indeed a playboy, he didn't look like one. Although Bruce didn't care much about his reputation, he still didn't want to be recognized by anyone at this party. At this time, disguise and makeup came in handy. Don't forget that this is a swimsuit party. You need to put on a protective cover for your body. Bruce looked at the scars all over his naked body and said, "This is a big project." While Bruce Wayne was disguising himself layer by layer, Harry, the host of the party, did not escape. Bernard stood at the door of Harry's room. "Master Harry, I'm up." Harry checked all the properties he had last night. Real estate was easy to say, he could leave it all to Bernard, but the shares of Osborn Group, all the research materials and equipment under his father's name, these were difficult to deal with, and many people were eyeing these things. So Harry spent the whole night studying the reliability of asset custody in Gotham and the operation of public welfare organizations in Gotham. While he was busy looking for the murderer who killed Harry, he also had to take time to consider the way out for Osborn Group after his death. Harry was really busy. After all, he was racing against death. In fact, he not only got up very early, but he even made his own liquid skin with the research materials left by his father. He only needed to apply a thin layer on the skin he wanted to cover up. It would completely blend into his own skin after solidification, and only special potions could wash it off. It must be said that in terms of biological drug research, his father in this world is simply a genius, just like his father in another world, a genius in weapons. Harry endured the pain and spread this sticky liquid all over the hideous abscess on his chest. The pink and white sticky liquid forced into every hole and wrinkle of the abscess, tightly blending with the damaged skin. Soon, Harry's chest returned to being flat and white. Harry also used this liquid to cover the abscesses on his neck and next to his right eye socket. But when it came to the waist and abdomen that were cut by the dagger the day before yesterday and the small and narrow scratches on the skin of his back, Harry hesitated. It would be great if there was no injury on the body, but it would be fake if it was too perfect. In the end, Harry still left those innocuous scratches. There are few sunny days in Gotham, but today is a good day with the sun hanging high. Osborn's three-story seaside villa was built in a Gothic style that fits the Gotham style very well. The milky white with a towering spire looks like a small castle against a clear blue sky. The soft white sand stretched from the entrance of the villa to the sea. Bernard had arranged many leisure and entertainment areas on the beach. Harry walked over from his beach villa wearing a pair of large sunglasses and stepped on the white sand. The scorching sun shone on his golden brown hair, as if a golden halo was worn on his soft hair. Bernard invited most of the supermodels who were relatively well known in Gotham recently and had no problems with their backgrounds. There were not many of them, roughly estimated to be about 20 or so. In order to prevent Harry from dying defenselessly in the arms of a supermodel at the party, Bernard replaced most of the service staff arranged at the party with trustworthy bodyguards despite Harry's obstruction. Therefore, the staff responsible for the party service seemed to be more than the people attending the party. However, thanks to the presence of these bodyguards, Bruce was a little glad that he was not the only male present besides little Osborn. The supermodels in hot bikinis saw Harry and they enthusiastically surrounded him and greeted the host of the party. Harry had never been to such a party before. He responded stiffly but politely to these models with different styles but all very beautiful. Some of them were even taller than him. Maybe others didn't notice Harry's stiffness, but Bruce Wayne, who was outside the crowd with a camera hanging around his neck, noticed it. No, he should be called Mr. Ryan now. Mr. Ryan wanted to laugh a little, but he immediately realized that something was wrong. Since little Osborn didn't really want to experience the feeling of being surrounded by beauties, why did he insist on holding a swimsuit-themed party? Moreover, the strange scar on little Osborn's chest disappeared. Bruce walked around behind Harry Osborn and raised the camera in his hand. "Ladies, can I borrow Mr. Osborn to ask some questions first?" Chapter 9. Perhaps these supermodels didn't have any idea about the young boys who were not strong and tall, and were even younger than themselves. They said goodbye to Harry and went to enjoy the sun, the beach, the waves, the champagne and the yacht. Harry reached out and took off the sunglasses on his face. His gray-blue eyes looked at the man in front of him who was nearly 10 centimeters taller than him, wearing a flowered shirt and beach pants, with a camera hanging around his neck. Are there any men among the people he invited? Harry looked at the black-haired and brown-eyed man in front of him and asked in confusion, "Excuse me, this? You can call me Ryan. I'm a reporter sent by Gotham Daily." Bruce recalled the reporters he usually met, and suddenly his old friend wearing a pair of old-fashioned black-framed glasses popped up in his mind. Well, maybe this character is not bad. Bruce quietly changed his body shape and posture. His strong muscles were hidden under the fancy shirt, and with a slightly hunched back, a slightly flattering smile, and a sincere and shy look, he perfectly transformed from a Wayne Brand to a Kent Brand reporter. "Oh, yes, Mr. Ryan, Gotham Daily sent you to my party." Harry was puzzled. For the sake of authenticity, he seemed to have specially marked the invitation letter that it would be best to send a hot beauty. Ryan smiled shyly, pursing his lips. "Our boss said I meet the requirements of the invitation letter." Harry's eyes could not help but turn around Ryan's chest and abdominal muscles exposed by his open shirt, then pass through his wide beach pants to see his legs with smooth muscle lines that seemed to be full of explosive power, and finally return to his face with a sincere smile. "Hot body, beauty, it seems that there is nothing wrong, but there are some problems everywhere. Your boss is a woman," Harry guessed. "Bruce Wayne, the boss behind the scenes, . No, it's a man." "Oh, so?" Harry nodded in understanding. It is indeed the type that both men and women like to look like this. But does he look like he likes men? Harry turned his back to Bruce and looked down at his abdomen that was thin and muscled, and missed his healthy body in his previous life. How? Bruce could totally guess what Harry Osborn was thinking. He was already choked by the little Osborn's crazy thoughts. "Excuse me, can I ask you a few questions?" Ryan raised the camera hanging around his neck again. Of course. Harry walked towards the parasol and beach chair with his bare chest. If it wasn't for proving that he had no scars on his body, Harry would never allow his frail appearance to be photographed or even published in the newspaper. In fact, Harry was slender and graceful, and even his casual words and actions were full of pleasing power. His sickly skin not only did not look pale, but it looked like a soft light filter under the sunlight. Thinness might not be a serious weakness on him. This sickly thinness made him particularly inviolable, and the irregularly distributed red long scratches on his waist, abdomen and back added an ambiguous meaning to his body. Bruce followed behind Harry, his eyes following Harry closely, especially staying on the scratches on his body. "What are you looking at?" Harry felt the gaze from behind. He turned around and stared at Ryan. The person who would observe his body like this might be a spy sent by the mastermind to observe his condition. Bruce's disguised brown eyes met Harry's misty gray-blue eyes. These unique eyes made little Osborn look particularly distant and difficult to approach. "I'm sorry, I just saw some scars on your back and guessed that you might have just had a wonderful night. I'm just curious and want to take a closer look," Ryan explained in a panic, but it seemed that the more he explained, the more confused he became. He tried to make himself look more sincere and reliable, so he hurriedly approached Harry, but tragically, the beach slippers on his feet sank into the sand, and the tall man with extremely uncoordinated hands and feet screamed and fell towards Harry in front of him. Harry tried to dodge, but was inexplicably hit and fell on the beach in disbelief. It was hard to tell whether the man who had thrown him down on purpose was pressing on him, even with his hands on his chest. The abscess on Harry's chest that was covered up began to sting violently because of the sudden pressure. He suppressed a cry of pain that might have come out of his mouth, and suspected that the man in front of him approached him to confirm the authenticity of his skin. Bruce did think so. The scar that was so serious the night before yesterday disappeared today. Bruce wanted to know whether he had covered it with artificial skin or had healed. The touch of the skin under his hand was extremely real, warm, elastic, smooth, and without any trace of splicing. What was even more suspicious was that the touch of the skin on both sides of his chest was exactly the same. Is this healed? The artificial skin produced by bats cannot reach such a perfect level. Mr. Osborn, I'm really sorry. Maybe I should go to Osborn's house tonight. He was really suspicious. Even if the missing people had nothing to do with him, the matter was related to Osborn after all, and he should have some clues. According to Batman's previous style, if the suspect was Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, he would have already gone to the Iceberg restaurant instead of worrying about all sorts of things here. Because Harry was conscious and did not call for help, was not angry, or trying to break free, the bodyguards who had just seen Harry being thrown to the ground and wanted to suppress the villain silently retreated. Harry ignored Ryan, who was apologizing, and stood up from the beach. He walked quickly under the parasol and picked up the gin and tonic with lime slices and ice cubes next to him and drank it all. The smooth and cold liquor passed down his throat, slightly suppressing his stinging scars and inner irritability. Now is not the time to alert the enemy. I think the best interview is to witness it with your own eyes, not a dry question and answer. Harry refused Ryan's request to continue the interview and ran to the speedboat full of hot supermodels. On the surface, only the Gotham Daily was invited to interview, but the man in black, whose task was to keep an eye on Harry Osborn today, still managed to get the candid photos taken at the swimsuit party. It was a thick stack, and every photo showed Harry Osborn. In the photos, some showed Harry swimming, some showed him being spilt with alcohol, some showed him playing beach volleyball, and some showed him resting on a rubber mat floating on the sea. Photos from all directions and poses, and none of them was abnormal. Boss, Harry Osborn is probably not sick yet. The man sitting behind the desk flipped through the photos in his hand one by one. He flipped faster and faster, and his breathing became more and more rapid. In the end, he simply threw all the photos out, and the thin photos fluttered all over the office. Damn Osborn. The man gritted his teeth. Tonight I want him dead. What do you mean? The man in black asked with his head down. I originally just wanted Osborn to die without any doubt, so that we can completely get rid of suspicion and smoothly take over everything of Osborn. The man was so angry that his pupils dilated, but little Osborn actually wants to make a will. We can't wait for him to get sick and die, so we have to find someone to kill him. Understood. It was already evening. Generally, the organizer of the party would at least invite a charming lady to dinner, but the drunk little Osborn couldn't do that at all. If Harry was not terminally ill and had an important mission, he might have started a new relationship that had nothing to do with Mary Jane, but regardless of those prerequisites, he had no intention of having any love affairs. Harry, who hurried home, needed to make some preparations for the upcoming attack. His room was in the middle of the third floor of the villa. A huge modified floor-to-ceiling window connected to the carefully arranged terrace. The floor-to-ceiling window had been replaced with double-layer bulletproof material. Looking around from here, you can see several villas far away. If the opponent intends to snipe, the shooting angles that can be chosen are limited. As long as Harry does not appear on the terrace, it will be difficult for the opponent to hide him. Harry didn't want to deal with an invisible enemy, he had to pull the enemy to him. So he would stay in the bedroom where the sniper rifle was difficult to aim, and then wait for the murderer to come. The exquisite classical lamp in the bedroom was equipped with a hidden aerosol sprayer, which was filled with the aphrodisiac developed by his father. The effect was extremely strong, and ordinary people would immediately faint as long as they smelled it. Of course, considering that the enemy might be well prepared and wearing a mask, the effectiveness of this aphrodisiac also has the effect of skin contact. This kind of aphrodisiac is a very effective means of attack in a sealed space, but its effect outdoors will be greatly reduced. Harry injected himself with a matching sobering agent in advance to prevent him from falling into the trap he set. Bernard and the rest of the bodyguards would hide in the opposite room and be ready to pick him up at any time. Speaking of bodyguards, Harry suddenly remembered the indifferent look of the group of bodyguards when he was thrown down on the beach. Is this really reliable? After everything was ready, it was already 9 o'clock in the evening. Harry sat in the small workroom equipped next to the bedroom, where he had arranged plans and looked up information in the past few nights. Perhaps something will come to a conclusion tonight. Tonight or tomorrow, or at the latest before the will is announced on Thursday, he will know who killed Harry Osborn. The hallucinatory Harry will appear when he is alone, looking at him expressionlessly and silently, as if he will not leave until Harry has completely avenged him. Harry focused his eyes on the computer screen and tried to ignore the impact of the hallucinations on himself, but his agitated heart made it impossible for him to focus on any plan. Harry had to flip through the public forums at random. Perhaps because his IP address was in Gotham, or perhaps because Harry used to pay more attention to Gotham's information, many topics and votes related to Gotham were pushed on the forum. Among them, the most popular discussion was about Batman. Is Batman a criminal or a hero? Does Gotham really need Batman? Isn't Batman a good neighbor for the people of Gotham? Harry recalled in his mind the man in a black uniform and a hideous half-face bat mask. Although his image was not as sunny as Spider-Man, he looked more mature and reliable than Peter. Harry roughly flipped through the comments in the post. More than half of the people agreed with Batman's existence and even received help from Batman. There were also some anti-heroes who opposed all heroes, including Batman. There were also many more extreme ones. Harry reported them all. He is a hero. Harry posted this sentence seriously in the post. Chapter 10. Late at night, Batman landed lightly on the roof of the Osborn family's villa. The lights in the whole villa were turned off, except for the room of little Osborn. The huge French window with golden light was conspicuous in the thick darkness like a pure white sheep among wolves, silently inviting sin. Batman jumped into the terrace. He did not deliberately hide his whereabouts. After all, he came to find Harry Osborn, not to secretly look for clues or evidence. According to Batman's observation, this villa only has conventional security measures, which is enough to deal with most criminals in the world, but it is not very safe in Gotham, especially the surveillance with many blind spots. Harry knew very well how sensitive people who are often in danger and people with sensitive five senses are to surveillance, so he only installed cameras on the surface and installed sensors in necessary hidden locations. There are many blind spots for cameras, and people with ulterior motives can easily avoid them completely, but the sensors will alert Harry in time. In Harry's opinion, this place is full of the smell of inviting someone into a trap, but outsiders would not think that an uneducated heir of Osborn would prepare these. When Batman landed on the terrace, he subconsciously avoided the surveillance camera, so Harry did not notice Batman's arrival at the first time. Harry has been sitting at his desk waiting for a long time. He knows that he should be patient. The enemy may come at any time, or may not appear until the last moment, but the longer he waits, the more anxious he becomes. The half-written draft of the will is casually left on the table, and he does not even want to look at the list of assets. He can't read the public forum, so Harry has to turn on the villa's surveillance to divert his attention. In the hallucination, Harry is wearing a silver-gray custom-made suit and leaning against his desk. Harry, why am I the one who died instead of you? We are both dead. You live, I die. I have died once, and I am about to die a second time. Harry tried his best to ignore his hallucinations. When he was full of hatred for Spider-Man and wanted to avenge his father at all costs, hallucinations about his father began to appear frequently, forcing him to take revenge and kill Spider-Man. However, when he accepted that his father actually died because of his own mistakes, and when he gave up his hatred for Spider-Man, the mean and vicious father in the hallucinations never appeared again. The appearance of Harry's hallucination this time happened to be because he found that there was something strange about Harry's death. In the final analysis, Harry knew that the hallucinations appeared because of his obsession, and were the result of the struggle and compromise between his weakness and strong desire. The hallucinations represent his strong desires. You are so weak, Harry, you have always been like this, why don't you look at me? And his, maybe self-loathing. Until the double-layer bulletproof floor-to-ceiling window was pushed open, the alarm next to the computer vibrated slightly, and the surveillance video was still normal. Harry realized that the murderer he was waiting for had appeared, and he quickly picked up the switch of the aerosol sprayer at hand and was ready. Harry in the hallucination seemed to be startled as well. He stopped staring at Harry and walked outside, seeming to be more impatient than Harry himself. Harry sat at his desk as if he hadn't noticed anything. But when Harry was about to press the switch of the jet, an unexpected figure appeared at the door of the suite. He was wearing a large black cloak, a hideous half-face mask, and his bloodless mouth was turned down. Batman. Harry suddenly felt a surge of anger of being deceived and betrayed. This feeling was like when he took off the mask of Spider-Man, the enemy who killed his father, and found that he was his best friend. Why is it you? Chapter 11. Ha 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 ha. Harry, are you angry? Your hero is here to kill you. Harry in the hallucination seemed to be activated by his inner anger, and instantly became lively, laughing, crying, and aggrieved. Shut up. Harry, wearing a blue silk nightgown, looked at Batman with red eyes. Against his sick and pale face, his expression was even more sad. Batman had approached many people late at night. Most of them were panicked and frightened, and a small number of people with a clear conscience could not help but feel afraid and confused. But no one was like little Osborn, as if it was so difficult for Batman to accept coming here, as if he had been betrayed. Looking at the weak appearance of little Osborn, Batman adjusted his standing position to block the cold wind blowing in through the window. He doubted whether little Osborn was really smoking that kind of extremely pure drug. "I came to see you." His voice was always low and slightly hoarse. "Yes. Of course I know you came to see me." Harry laughed at himself. "You showed up in my room late at night. What else can you do except come to see me?" "Do you know why I came?" Harry relaxed his body and leaned back on the leather chair. He put his hand on his thigh, holding the start switch of the aerosol sprayer tightly in his palm. He did not choose to attack the man who sneaked into his room at night at the first time. Perhaps only when Batman really attacked him, he would be willing to completely withdraw his trust. "I thought you were a good guy, Batman." Harry was a little sad, "But you're here to kill me." The moment Harry finished speaking, Batman's earpiece rang with undisguised laughter. "Aha, Batman who is misunderstood to be murdering. Red Robin, you're too noisy." Robin's voice was filled with subtle impatience. "There's definitely something wrong with Harry Osborn, and everyone knows that Batman doesn't kill people. Batman's jokes are not often seen." Tim, who was patrolling with Robin temporarily, even squatted on the rooftop to intercept this recording and saved it. Bruce never defined himself as a good guy, but he didn't want to argue with little Osborn about this now. Of course, he didn't want to respond to Tim and Damien in the inside line. The situation now is obvious. Little Osborn knows that someone is coming to kill him, perhaps tonight, or perhaps in the next few days, and Batman happened to find him at such a sensitive time. "I won't kill anyone, and I'm not here to kill you," Batman explained calmly. "If you don't do anything out of line, I will be completely harmless to you." Harry suddenly fell silent. He looked at Batman who was blocking the door with a complicated expression. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Just at this moment, the alarm Harry set vibrated slightly again, and someone walked into his bedroom through the window again. Batman noticed it earlier, and he heard the sound of a gun being loaded from the terrace. Very good, it seems that he really caught up with an assassination attempt on little Osborn. When Harry felt the alarm vibrate, Batman ran to little Osborn with light steps, picked him up and hid in the shadow next to the large bookcase in the room. He stuffed little Osborn behind him and carefully observed the movement outside. "You really are not here to kill me." Harry hid behind Batman, pulled his cloak tightly, and asked in a faint voice. Batman did not answer. "Thank you." Harry pressed between the hard wall and the cold bat armor, and had a rare moment of relaxation. It had been a long time since anyone stood in front of him to protect him. Both he and the Harry of this world seemed to be facing great changes and surging malice alone. The killer outside, who didn't know the details, didn't realize that his whereabouts had been exposed. He was just hired to kill a rich young man who had no sense of crisis. This kind of action is usually not difficult. The killer just walked into the brightly lit bedroom openly, his footsteps stepped silently on the thick carpet. He held the loaded gun and began to look for Harry Osborn carefully. Although the big bed that looked soft and comfortable had been made, it was obviously not slept in. Then, the killer's sight moved to the dimly lit suite next to it. Would it be there? The killer obviously did not receive very strict training. Of course, it is also possible that he did not think that the target this time needed to be vigilant. His shadow was projected on the ground at the door of the suite under the bright light of the bedroom, and he was approaching the room little by little. Harry's right hand still held a small ejector switch, but he thought, maybe it wouldn't be used today. If he turned on the switch now, not only the damned killer, but also Batman would fall. At least at this moment, a dark back is more reassuring than a carefully prepared trap. Batman almost hid in the shadow of the big bookcase. He patiently waited for the killer to appear, while being alert to the murderous hand that might come from behind. Now Gotham rarely wears a mask when doing bad things. This killer who acts in the middle of the night obviously follows this fine tradition. Therefore, Batman recognized this familiar face at a glance. Of course, it was not any supervillain who went in and out of Arkham 7 times. It was the bartender of Old Jack's bar in the East District, who gave the drugs to little Osborn. If he came to kill Harry Osborn, then little Osborn might have nothing to do with the human trafficking of the Osborn Group, or did they have an internal split? After the cloudy-eyed bartender walked in here with a gun, Batman rushed out quickly. The killer's eyes were just blurred, and suddenly he seemed to see a huge bat with bared fangs and claws rushing towards him. It was Batman. Shit, why is Batman here? He wanted to flee in fear, and even turned back to shoot in the direction of Batman. However, He was caught up by Batman and his arm was broken after firing only the third bullet. The other 2 bullets hit Batman's chest armor and left almost no trace. At least this killer had good accuracy and hit the target within 5 meters. Batman could of course dodge, but little Osborn was still behind. After the killer's gun was knocked out of his hand, he was like a venomous snake with its teeth pulled out. Under Batman's attack, he had nowhere to escape and was soon thrown to the ground with a swollen cheek. The sound of gunfire soon attracted Bernard and the group of ambushing bodyguards in the opposite room. After they pushed the door open and rushed in, they saw the unknown man who was tied up tightly and thrown to the ground, the oppressive Batman standing beside him, and their young master protected by Batman. Chapter 12. It seems that things have developed unexpectedly. Bernard was still worried that the plan had gone wrong. The anesthetic prepared in the aerosol sprayer had not taken effect or Harry had not had time to activate it, but it turned out to be unnecessary. Fortunately, Harry was fine. Harry walked out from behind Batman. "Bernard, it's okay now. Thank you for your help, Mr. Batman." Bernard asked the bodyguards gathered here to disperse, and by the way, he unloaded the magazine of his loaded gun, reassembled it and put it back into the holster on his waist. "Master Harry, I'm glad to see that you are not injured." The butler's whole person and his tone showed great relief. "I promised you to protect yourself. Of course, I will always believe in you, but you can't stop me from worrying." Batman was watching the exchange between the young master and the butler from the side. It was really hard not to think of Alfred every time he went on a night patrol. An extremely subtle feeling suddenly emerged in his heart. "This makes me feel a little empathetic, Master Bruce." Alfred usually doesn't gossip in the back line, especially when there are people next to Batman. "Alfred, this is different." Bruce wanted to refute, but he obviously couldn't do it now. It would be better to solve the current problem first. "Harry Osborn, who wants to kill you?" Batman asked in a deep voice. "That's exactly what I'm wondering." Harry walked up to the killer tied to the ground and looked down at the tied man. "I've seen you, the bartender of old Jack's bar. Who sent you to kill me?" "Huh, do you think I'll tell you?" There was disdain in the man's turbid dark green eyes. "If Batman wasn't here today, you would have died in." Bernard took out a gun from his waist in time and blocked his mouth with a gun, then took out the syringe that had been prepared long ago from his arms and handed it to Harry. Batman stopped little Osborn who was squatting on the ground and preparing to inject the killer with drugs. "What is this?" "It's just a truth potion," Harry explained to Batman. "I don't intend to kill him. After all, I got the clue with great difficulty. This is contraband. I thought you knew what my family does. Developing drugs to save lives?" Harry started the injection again. The tied man on the ground struggled and rolled back. The butler with mixed black and white hair raised his foot and stepped on one of his arms. "Very good." Batman wanted to know where the butler and the young master of the Osborn family came from. He felt uncomfortable indulging in crime before his eyes. After successfully injecting the whole potion into the bartender and killer, the man lying on the ground became visibly depressed. Bernard took the opportunity to take out the gun stuck in his mouth, and then threw it away in disgust. "Bernard, I will buy you a new one," Harry comforted. "In fact, it doesn't matter if you didn't block his mouth just now." "Master Harry, thank you for your concern, but I want to know who is going to kill you now." "Oh, yes." Harry took a deep breath. He looked at Bernard who was expecting and Batman who was watching silently, and kicked the man on the ground lightly to attract his attention. "Who sent you to kill Harry Osborn?" Harry's illusion that had just disappeared appeared again at this moment, and he stood side by side with Harry. "Mike's bodyguard." The man uncontrollably uttered the name of his employer. Harry and Bernard frowned at the same time. Batman also realized that this matter might have something to do with the missing persons. It seems that the mastermind is Mike. Bernard clenched his fists. He wished that Mike would die immediately. Harry suffered so much harm when he and Master Norman didn't know, and even his condition was triggered by them to an almost irreversible point. "Why did he send you to kill Harry Osborn?" Harry continued to ask. "I don't know. Is that bottle of blue medicine just a simple drug?" Harry thought of the drug that Bird tried every means to get him to try before returning to Gotham. Harry took it back from old Jack's bar and put it in the desk drawer in the suite where he was just staying. Batman realized that the drug Harry Osborn asked about was the bottle of blue crystals that the bartender handed to him last time, which contained an unknown substance. "I don't know. Old Jack said it could take Osborn's life." Who is old Jack? Harry continued to ask. The bar owner is cooperating with Mike, a shareholder of Osborn. What are they cooperating on? I don't know, but every month old Jack sends an unconscious person out in a wine truck. Batman listened calmly. This was obviously the clue to the missing persons case he was looking for. It seemed that little Osborn had nothing to do with this case. The planner was probably Mike, one of the shareholders of the Osborn Group. Seeing that he couldn't get more valuable information out of him, Harry thought, why does Mike have to kill me? Does he want money? Harry couldn't figure it out. Is a 2-year murder plan really necessary? Just like tonight, sending a killer who knows nothing can achieve the goal. Maybe it's because Bernard didn't know what to say, because this matter had nothing to do with the Osborn family. Harry and Batman both looked at Bernard. 2.5 years ago, Master Norman and Mike were in a car heading to the Gotham Center exhibition. They had a car accident on the way to the exhibition. Bernard tried to recall more details. Master Norman was safe at the time, but Mike's leg was broken. He wanted Master Norman to help him develop a drug that could regenerate a broken limb, but Master Norman refused. Just for this reason. Killed Harry. Harry saw himself crying in the hallucination, silently and extremely silent, completely different from his usual crazy appearance. I won't let him go. Harry promised himself that the 20-year-old boy couldn't die for nothing. Batman was also thinking that Mike was delusional to capture people with physical defects due to acquired reasons to develop drugs to regenerate broken limbs. For 2 whole years, it was almost impossible for those missing people to survive. Harry Osborn's questioning was over. Batman picked up the man lying on the ground and said to Harry, I'm taking him away. I will hand him over to the Gotham Police Department. But before that, he also had some questions to ask this person. The truth potion of the Osborn family was indeed useful. Please wait, I have one last question. Bernard stopped Batman. Batman stopped. Who is Bert who deposited the bottle of drugs with old Jack? Bernard asked this question very seriously, as if the answer was very important to him. Harry didn't know the answer either, as Bert was just someone Harry met by chance in the bar. Old Jack's son. The unconscious man answered instinctively. Bernard nodded to Batman. I have finished asking, please be sure to send him to Commissioner Gordon, he should be punished. Batman easily carried the man who seemed to be unconscious to the window. Harry suddenly remembered that Batman was really strong when he lifted him up from the office chair and blocked him behind him. Thank you, Batman. Harry thanked Batman for the second time. Batman didn't say anything, and still chose to leave from the terrace. Although he was carrying an unconscious adult man, his actions seemed to be unaffected. The Batmobile has stopped at the door of Osborn Villa. Alfred remotely controlled the Batmobile to pick up his master. Things seemed to be resolved. Robin felt like the answer was revealed, but it was not bad. Red Robin interrupted the conversation. Does anyone remember what B originally wanted to do with Harry Osborn? Harry, Batman also knows about Mike's activities behind the scenes, and he will intervene in this matter. Bernard obviously has a basic understanding of Batman. But, Bernard, I have to make him pay the price. Batman will not kill Mike, and the Gotham government will not kill Mike, but Osborn must make Mike pay for Harry's life. Chapter 13. If it were normal, when the sky gradually brightened, the Batman family would have finished their night patrol and went to sleep. However, today, it was not possible. In addition to Robin who had to go to class, Bruce and Tim had to solve many problems. If the killer sent by Mike never came back, they would definitely consider that the intention to murder little Osborn would be exposed. However, in the matter of murder, it was very easy for Mike to exonerate himself, so he might not be so vigilant. But the continuous use of Gotham's missing people for illegal human experiments for 2 years was exposed. With irrefutable evidence, Mike would have nowhere to escape. The killer, who was a part-time bartender at Old Jack's bar, had no idea that the bar owner and Mike, a shareholder of the Osborn Group, were secretly cooperating. They could not use this as a basis to let the GCPD take Mike away to cooperate with the investigation. Batman had to find evidence of his crime before Mike became alert. That is, he needed to find the exact location where the missing people were transferred as soon as possible, or to be frank, find the illegal laboratory. But Gotham was so big. The killer knew limited information, and Batman would not know more even if he asked him. Batman sent the killer to the Gotham Police Department as agreed, and discussed the progress of the case with Gordon. As expected, the Gotham Police Department found almost nothing. Batman had to ask Gordon to temporarily conceal the news that the killer was caught to prevent Mike from destroying the evidence in a hurry. In short, keep it a secret for as long as possible. It is obviously not the style of the Bat family to search around Gotham like a headless fly. We have investigated the wine truck in Old Jack's bar before. It comes 3 times a month on average, but each time it goes in a different direction and goes to a different destination. Tim returned to the Batcave and retrieved the information of the bar he had investigated on the computer. After the homeless man disappeared, the bar's wine truck came the next day. They should have transported the homeless man away with his truck. The destination is at the other end of the East District. Robin and I have investigated it and there is no doubt. Tim marked the route of the wine truck on the map of Gotham's East District, but there was a large section missing in the middle. The surveillance in the middle area is broken. Tim said helplessly, but according to the performance of the ordinary wine truck, the farthest he could detour in the 15 minutes it disappeared was within this area. Tim marked a range on the broken driving route map again. The range is still very large, and the illegal laboratory may not be in that area. There may be secondary or even multiple transfers between them. We need more certain information. Batman pondered. For example, Mike's bodyguard, investigators and Mike's movements. Before becoming a shareholder of Osborn, Mike had studied biological sciences with Norman Osborn. He also has a lot of knowledge in biological sciences and biomedicine. He attaches great importance to this experiment that has lasted for at least 2 years and even wants to rely on it to stand up again. Therefore, the laboratory must be in a place that Mike can easily reach, and he will not attract attention or arouse suspicion if he often goes there. After finding the murderer who killed Harry in this world, Harry needs to consider how to get rid of Mike without involving himself and the entire Osborn Group. Harry, who had always been a law-abiding citizen in his previous life and only caused trouble for Spider-Man in the last period of his life, was not good at this. In his other self's memory, there was no knowledge about how to kill people you hate. Harry, who was too short of experience, first thought of doing it himself, but his current physical fitness and equipment could not support this idea at all. Perhaps, Harry thought, maybe he should replicate the strengthening potion in his previous life. Even if there was only a short time left in his life, it would feel terrible to be bound in a weak body again after having such great power. Especially in the alley in the East District that night. What worried Harry was that it was just a semi-finished potion. His father almost completely lost control after using it. Fortunately, he did not have a big sequelae, but there was no guarantee that he would be lucky the second time. It is one thing to worry about whether to use it, and it is another thing to prepare in advance. Harry planned to go to the laboratory under his father's name in this world as soon as possible. Harry remembered the materials and proportions required for the strengthening potion very clearly. Although he could not develop it, all he needed was to copy it exactly according to the information in his mind. In addition, the corresponding weapon should also be prepared early. And tomorrow, Harry wondered whether he should go to see Mike. Early the next morning, gossip about Harry Osborn had spread all over the streets and alleys of Gotham. When Harry Osborn appeared at the dining table, Bernard had already packed up all the newspapers delivered in the morning. Harry never had the patience to read these in the morning. "Bernard, is there any news worth noting?" Harry glanced at the newspaper next to him. "If your gossip counts, you should have expected this." Harry shook his head. "If I can occupy the headlines of the news, it must be because Bruce Wayne is not in Gotham." Harry has been looking up information recently and is dizzy. His only entertainment may be to look at the ubiquitous Wayne gossip, the kind that pops up on the web page where he is looking up information. Bernard took out a newspaper and handed it to Harry. "If you are interested, the headline of this Gotham entertainment news is You and Mr. Wayne. Who is the most ridiculous rich man in Gotham? Wayne or Osborn?" The title even considerately provided a comparison photo of the two rich men. Bruce Wayne, with his deep blue eyes and a smile, can be felt as sweet as honey just by looking at the photo, and Harry Osborn, with his gray blue eyes and expressionless face, can be difficult to approach just by looking at the photo. Harry thought that he, who had only held a swimsuit party, was far from being comparable to Bruce Wayne, the Prince of Gotham. Moreover, compared to the Wayne family, which has existed since the existence of Gotham, the Osborn family is only a new star that has risen in Gotham in recent decades. Harry believes that they are not as rich as Bruce Wayne. However, such a ridiculous news headline still aroused Harry's interest. He suddenly wanted to see if there would be more outrageous ones, So Harry began to flip through several other newspapers. The heir of the Osborn Group and the beauties in swimsuits. The photo shows Harry driving a speedboat with a beautiful female model in a bikini. Harry Osborn actually dated many beauties within a week of his father's funeral. The accompanying picture shows Harry, shirtless, lying on a rubber mat on the sea with several supermodels. Harry Osborn, bisexual or gay? Harry Osborn's sexual orientation revealed. What? Harry suspected that he had read it wrong, so he picked up the newspaper and read Harry Osborn, bisexual or gay? Not sure, he took another look at Harry Osborn's sexual orientation revealed. A large color photo that took up half of the newspaper was clearly visible, and there was even a supporting explanation below. Harry Osborn was pinned down on the beach by a strong male model, and the two behaved intimately. Harry almost vomited the coffee he had drunk. It's really disgusting to have such a scandal with an undercover sent by Mike to test me. Are you angry because the person is not the right one? Bernard looked at Harry, who was crumpling the newspaper in disgust. Maybe. Harry even began to think about whether he liked men according to the newspaper. If so, his best and most familiar male friend was Peter. Oh, Bernard, I want to have a good breakfast once in a while. The Wayne family unexpectedly appeared at the breakfast table on time today. In addition to Damien, who gets up on time every morning to do morning exercises and then showers and goes to school, Tim and even Bruce also showed up. This is really rare. There are actually 3 people sitting at the Wayne family's breakfast table. Alfred exclaimed. Are you going to do anything today, Father? Damien was already planning to leave, but he didn't want to miss Batman's action. If necessary, I can definitely take a leave. No, you need to go to school. Huh. After staying up all night, Tim, who was full of energy in the morning, laughed loudly. Damien glanced at Tim coldly with his green eyes and uttered a catchphrase. TT. Then he left here decisively. Hey, Alfred, is he saying Drake? You wait, I think it's more than that, Master Tim. Alfred sorted out the newspaper at hand. Are there any new arrangements today? Bruce is going to visit the Osborn Group. We suspect that the illegal laboratory is likely to be in the Osborn Group. When the overnight investigation resulted in this most likely answer, not only Tim, but even Bruce was a little bit unbelievable. If it is true, then the Osborn Group must not only have Mike and his bodyguards, but also his researchers who are participating in human experiments. This sounds a bit bad. Afu picked up newspapers that occasionally published some valuable information. However, today's news is almost all about Harry Osborn, whether it is the social section, entertainment section, gossip section, or even the political livelihood section. Afu has a good impression of the boy whose voice he has only heard in the mobile headset. However, these media are almost all blaming the boy from the Osborn family. When Afu turned to an entertainment newspaper that he would never pay attention to normally, he couldn't help but stop what he was doing. Master Bruce, I have to say that you have ruined the reputation of a boy. Afu took out the newspaper and put it next to Bruce. The newspaper was printed with a color-candid photo as big as half a sheet of paper. A man with black hair and a fancy shirt pressed a young man who was a circle younger than him on the white beach, and even supported his hands on his chest. The two looked at each other, looking very ambiguous. This photo even edited out the camera hanging around Bruce's neck that day. Of course, with Bruce's clever use of force, the camera did not fall directly on the skinny body of little Osborn. Buy this newspaper. He helped Harry Osborn to clear his name. Chapter 14. When Harry showed up at Mike's office early in the morning, Mike was parking his expensive wheelchair by the window and drinking coffee leisurely. Good morning. Harry pushed the door open without knocking. Mike was holding a cup of hot coffee when he heard Harry's voice. He trembled and spilled half of the coffee on his dark gray suit. Mike, who was waiting for the news of Harry's death, turned his head in disbelief, his eyes fixed on the smiling Harry. Is your hand going to be crippled too? Mike, be careful. Harry seemed to have a hint. Mike was confused but quickly covered up the surprise on his face. Harry? Why are you here? Mr. Osborn, call me Mr. Osborn. The gentle expression on Mike's face froze, and then he showed a helpless and indulgent attitude towards an ignorant junior. Okay, Mr. Osborn, little. Disgusted, Harry looked at the middle-aged man sitting in a wheelchair, wearing a neat suit and a gentle smile, and his violent thoughts piled up layer by layer. Mike, do you want to stand up? Harry asked casually. The man in the dark gray suit patted his numb legs while sitting in a wheelchair and answered patiently, My injury is too severe. Conventional treatments are no longer enough to heal my legs. Really? Harry's lonely and helpless appearance in this world reappeared in his mind. The abscess on the side of his neck could not be cured. He resisted everyone getting close to him, woke up in pain countless times in his sleep, and relied on alcohol to numb his senses. In addition, a bottle of whiskey was opened and mixed with drugs that Harry and was extreme resistance to, and then a new abscess quickly spread on his chest. Harry died quietly, and the person who caused all this was sitting in a wheelchair leisurely drinking coffee and basking in the sun every day. Why? Harry approached Mike step by step. He was just a disabled person sitting in a wheelchair. If he wanted, there were many ways to kill him immediately. But he shouldn't die so easily. Harry stopped. At least he should be ruined and lose everything first. Harry's helplessness and pain, he should try them all one by one, and then die in despair. Knock, knock, knock. Mike's office door was knocked. Come in. Mike, who was sitting in a wheelchair, raised his voice and said to Harry, "My office seems to be particularly popular today." The one knocking on the door was Miss Felicia, Norman Osborn's former assistant, who is now Harry's assistant. "What's the matter, Felicia?" Harry had almost handed over all the work to this assistant, and she probably wouldn't come if it was nothing. Mr. Osborn, Mr. Bruce Wayne is visiting Osborn Enterprises today and is now in the reception room. Bruce Wayne? The half-length photo of him that was printed in the newspaper this morning suddenly appeared in Harry's mind. What is he doing here? Harry had never heard of the company having an appointment with Wayne before, but he came at the right time, and Harry was planning to ask Wayne to discuss some cooperation. Harry ignored Mike, who seemed to be about to say something, and walked straight out of Mike's office. Felicia followed Harry and closed the door. Mr. Wayne said that as a longtime partner of the Osborn Group, he should come to visit you and talk about the next cooperation. The assistant said businesslike. In the reception room of the Osborn Group, Bruce Wayne was standing by the huge glass window with a relaxed look. Across from the Osborn Group building, separated by many tall buildings, was the Wayne Group building with a huge W letter on it. When Harry walked into the reception room, he saw Bruce Wayne standing lazily by the window. Mr. Wayne. Bruce turned around, smiled warmly when he saw Harry, and walked up to shake his hand. Mr. Osborn, it's nice to see you. I should have visited you first, Mr. Wayne. Harry had only seen Bruce Wayne in gossip news before, but when the real person appeared in front of him, Harry seemed to truly understand how the title of Gotham Prince had been following this 35-year-old man for 10 years. He seemed to be filled with a carefree and happy atmosphere. Just seeing him seemed to be seeing hope itself. This was a feeling Harry had never experienced before. His inner anxiety and irritability seemed to be blown away by a refreshing sea breeze. Maybe you can just call me Bruce. Looking at Bruce Wayne's clear blue eyes, Harry found that he couldn't seem to say no. Of course, Bruce, you can just call me Harry. Osborn and Wayne have many projects in cooperation. Although Bruce Wayne's company affairs are well known in Gotham, it is not uncommon for him to want to do something on a whim occasionally. Are you here to discuss cooperation today? Harry welcomed it. He also wanted to talk to Wayne Group about cooperating to establish a medical foundation. Cooperation is just a small matter, Harry. Bruce shook his head. I want to visit the laboratory of Osborn Group. You know, Wayne Group has the best everything in Gotham, only biomedicine lags behind Osborn Group. I want to see what the difference is between the laboratories of Osborn Group and Wayne Group, okay? Harry didn't know what was good to visit in the laboratory, but, of course, Harry was not familiar with the distribution of laboratories in Osborn Group, so he brought Felicia to lead the way for the two of them. Laboratories are usually on the lower floors due to their functions. The laboratory experiment project under Norman Osborn's personal name has come to a standstill, so the laboratory is closed. Felicia took them to visit the rest of the laboratories under the name of Osborn. Especially in the underground floor, the laboratories there are more densely distributed. Bruce is of course not just here to visit. The equipment he brought with him has completely photographed all the places he passed by, and at the same time he analyzed the structure of the building in his mind. The illegal human laboratory should be hidden, and this experiment requires a wide space. On the upper floors, Bruce did not find any abnormality in the spatial distribution. Is there only one laboratory underground? Yes, there are only more important laboratories inside the Osborn building, and there are more laboratories that are not in the Osborn building. Felicia replied. I thought you would have an underground parking lot or something," Bruce asked casually. Felicia paused. There was an underground parking lot before, but there were several fires in it, which affected many experiments in the laboratory, so the parking lot on the second underground floor was filled in. Harry never paid attention to such trivial matters, but it was a bit strange to fill the underground parking lot. When did this happen? It's been 2 years. 2 years, a time that cannot help but make people suspicious. After the tour, Harry and Bruce Wayne walked out of the Osborn Group building together. "Bruce, I have a charity project that I want to talk to you about. Maybe we can make an appointment to have dinner." "Of course, we are already friends, right?" There's a large screen outside the shopping mall near the Osborn Group. It is usually used to play promotional videos for some products, and occasionally some urgent news, such as now. When Bruce opened the door of the Maserati and had no time to get in, an urgent news was inserted into the video. According to the contact between the Gotham Police Department and Arkham Asylum, the Scarecrow and the Joker have escaped from the Arkham Asylum this morning. The Gotham Police Department would like to remind the general public to pay attention to travel safety. Harry was attracted by this inexplicable GG. Who are the Scarecrow and the Joker? Why did they escape from the asylum? When he turned around again, Bruce Wayne and his Maserati had disappeared. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15. Mr. Osborn. Harry was about to leave the office when the assistant rushed over and called him. "There's something about the Osborn Group that I think I should tell you." The assistant hesitated, and Harry stepped aside from the office door, letting her in first, and then closed the door. "Felicia, does the Osborn Group have a secret that I don't know?" Harry could only guess that he had only taken over the Osborn Group for a few days, but all the company's important projects, all important decisions, and major expenditures were all placed on his desk. Felicia would not come here to report these things on purpose. It could only be something hidden from him, something behind the scenes. "It's about an experiment called Special Project." Special Project. Harry didn't see this name in the pile of experimental materials or even experimental plans, but he saw some inexplicable experiments, such as the relief and healing projects of fear gas and laughing gas. "I once overheard Mike and the researchers at the Neural Proliferation Laboratory discussing this. Secret research is being conducted in the Osborn Group's laboratory." Felicia continued to explain to Harry, "Mr. Norman was going to investigate this, but you suspect Mike used the Osborn Group's laboratory to conduct his own secret experiments." Harry frowned. "Although I have no evidence, but, yes." Harry drove distractedly on the streets of Gotham in the evening, thinking about Mike and the special project all the way. His father once refused to develop the technology for Mike to regenerate severed limbs, and Mike was willing to retaliate against the Osborn family because of this. So would he really give up the research on regeneration of severed limbs because of his father's refusal? Harry didn't think so. Is the special experiment that Mike and the researchers at the Neural Proliferation Laboratory secretly conducting the regeneration of severed limbs? When the killer confessed last night, he once said that the bar owner Old Jack and Mike had another private cooperation. Old Jack would deliver an unconscious person to Mike every month. So, they conducted illegal human experiments in the Osborn Group's laboratory? How dare he? Where would the hidden laboratory be? As soon as he thought of this question, the garage on the second underground floor that was filled 2 years ago appeared in Harry's mind. The Neural Proliferation Laboratory happened to be on the first underground floor. If the researchers in the Neural Proliferation Laboratory had some cooperation with Mike or simply colluded with each other, then they would have too many opportunities to hide the illegal laboratory completely in a corner where Osborn could not find it. Harry was almost ready to turn around and go back to Osborn building to find the damn laboratory, but at this time his cell phone rang suddenly. It was Bernard. Harry slowed down and answered the phone next to him. "Bernard, I may have to go back late today." Bernard's voice on the other side of the phone seemed a little anxious, and his speed was even faster than usual. "Master Harry, what can I do for you? Mike may be conducting human experiments in the laboratory of Osborn Group without our knowledge. I want to find this laboratory." "Not today, Master Harry." Bernard quickly rejected Harry's plan. "The Scarecrow and the Joker have escaped from prison. I'm worried that they will find you." "The Scarecrow and the Joker?" The mentally ill who escaped from the mental hospital in the Gotham Police Department's report? It sounds dangerous. Who are they? The Scarecrow and the Joker are notorious criminals in Gotham, creating chaos everywhere, attacking indiscriminately, and killing people without a plan. Bernard introduced the Scarecrow and the Joker in the shortest possible words. In order to prevent Harry from not taking it seriously, he finally emphasized, they are very dangerous. It sounds similar to Dr. Octopus or Sandman and Venom in New York. But they can't have mechanical tentacles with a strength of 8 tons or transform into huge monsters made of sand, or like Venom. Harry died at the hands of Venom, and he didn't want to recall the monster with a black body and fangs. Although the Scarecrow and the Joker may not be as powerful as Dr. Octopus, Harry suddenly remembered that he was not as fearless as he was during the Green Goblin period. Does Osborn have a personal grudge against them? Why are you afraid that they will find me? How could Osborn have any relationship with criminals? Harry was upset. Master Norman once. Bernard was explaining when he suddenly heard a loud noise from the other end of the phone. Master Harry? What happened? There was no response from the other end of the phone, only the chaotic screams of the crowd. Bernard's heart seemed to be suddenly grasped by a big hand. Harry. Harry. Bernard's shouts were repeated louder and louder on the phone next to the driver's seat of the smashed Bentley. The driver's seat was empty except for the airbag that popped out. The media in Gotham are different from those in other cities. They usually don't go to the crime scenes of villains. Just like the scene of Mr. Osborn's accident in the evening. After it was completely calm here, the media followed the Gotham Police Department to arrive late. Before that, Bernard had hurriedly driven along the road that Harry had to take to go home. Not long after, he saw a sapphire blue Bentley parked on the side of the road, and the door on the driver's side was almost completely smashed. When Gordon arrived at the scene, he saw the butler of the Osborn family, who was wearing a complete set of exquisite suits, but whose tie flew out completely due to his haste, standing silently in front of the almost scrapped vehicle. Gordon had met Bernard when Norman Osborn was involved in Scarecrow's terrorist attack. He stood beside the crashed Bentley, frowning and asking his blonde subordinate, "Did the surveillance camera capture what happened?" It did. Harry Osborn was driving through the intersection, and suddenly a black Ford van rushed out and hit Osborn's car. Harry Osborn fainted on the spot and was taken away by 2 masked men. Bernard held his trembling hands and listened carefully to what happened. "Did you check the license plate number?" The black Ford was a stolen car. The owner is now on vacation in Central City and has no idea. They were completely unsure who took Harry Osborn away. The assassin that Batman secretly sent to the Gotham Police Department yesterday was sent by Mike to kill Harry Osborn, so this attack on little Osborn was probably Mike's work. But the attack happened just after Scarecrow and Joker escaped from prison, and Scarecrow happened to have some special attention to the Osborn Group. Or maybe it was just an ordinary kidnapper. Bernard might receive a ransom text message from the kidnapper soon. If it was the last case, at least Bernard could comfort himself that Harry was safe for the time being. But looking at Harry's cell phone that was carelessly abandoned in the car, Bernard had no hope at all for the kidnapper's guess. "Commissioner Gordon, can you contact Batman?" If it was about Scarecrow or Joker, then maybe only Batman and Robin in the whole of Gotham could rescue Harry. Bernard touched the gun tied under his suit. If he could find Harry, he would not hesitate no matter what it cost. But with Harry completely missing, he couldn't even find a way to pay. Batman will get the news. I believe he's already taking action. Batman knows everything about what happened in Gotham. This is the consensus of the people of Gotham. I hope so. Batman is now tracking the trail of Scarecrow and Joker. After learning that the 2 of them escaped from Arkham, Bruce immediately returned to the Batcave to investigate. The longer time passed, the more unpredictable the Scarecrow and the Joker became. He had to catch them back to Arkham as soon as possible before they jumped out to cause trouble. Scarecrow and the Joker seemed to have separated immediately after escaping from prison. They did not intend to act together, which was good news for Gotham. Just as Batman and Red Robin were looking for the 2 mentally ill people together, Alfred, who was monitoring the situation in Gotham, suddenly sent a message saying that Harry Osborn had been kidnapped. At this time, Batman also encountered the same problem as Bernard. Was little Osborn kidnapped by Michael's design or by Scarecrow? But no matter who it was, little Osborn was equally dangerous at this time. Chapter 16. Harry's car was hit from the side, and the cab was almost smashed. Harry was protected in the middle by the seatbelt and airbag, but he still fainted in the violent collision. Harry didn't know what happened next. When he vaguely regained some consciousness, he only felt the severe pain in his forehead and the handcuffed wrists. His face seemed a little tight, probably because the blood from the forehead that was hit had dried on his face. Harry felt that his nose was even filled with a disgusting bloody smell. The dried blood seemed to stick to his eyelids, and his eyes were heavy and couldn't be opened no matter how hard he tried. His body seemed to be thrown on the cold floor, and the damp and cold air was creeping deeper and deeper along Harry's exposed skin, and his blurred consciousness was gradually awakened by the stimulation. Cough cough. Harry couldn't help coughing twice and opened his eyes with force. It was dark around him, and it seemed very narrow, with no one. Harry heard his slight cough as if it was magnified countless times in this darkness. His hands were handcuffed behind his back, and his body was lying on the ground. Because of his awkward posture, the sleeves of his suit were pulled back a lot. At this time, Harry's face, wrists and a part of his exposed forearm were all pressed against the rough concrete floor. Dust was drilling into Harry's bloody nose when he breathed. Was he kidnapped? Harry struggled to sit up against the wall. He guessed that he might have a slight concussion, dizzy and nauseous. The gun on his waist was removed. Harry didn't touch his holster, but he touched the miniature compressed gas tank stuffed in the cuff of his suit. A pure dark space can most arouse people's fear. Harry opened his eyes but couldn't see anything because the environment was too dark. It was not very comfortable to stay in such a place for a long time. After sitting against the wall for a while to relieve his dizziness, Harry struggled to stand up. He leaned against the wall and rubbed the position of the door bit by bit. It would be great if he could find the light switch in the process. Harry quickly walked around the room. It was really small, perhaps 30 square meters. Harry fumbled with the iron door behind him with his cuffed hands. There was no light coming through the crack of the door. If it wasn't because it was dark outside, it was because the room was well sealed. Since he was kidnapped, he hasn't seen any human figure, except for the car that rushed towards him at the beginning. What did his kidnappers want to do? If the goal was his life, they should have shot him while he was unconscious, or simply crashed him to death in the car, instead of wasting so much effort to take him away and lock him up. Thinking of this, Harry simply kicked the iron door, and the heavy sound of the iron door rang out in the empty room. Soon, before Harry even had time to kick a second time, the dim incandescent lamp on the ceiling lit up. Although its dim light didn't have much effect in this dark space, Harry was still stimulated by the sudden light and closed his eyes, and a few tears flowed uncontrollably from the corners of his eyes. No wonder he couldn't find the switch, it turned out to be remotely controlled. After a little relief, Harry opened his eyes again. The room was empty, with almost no furniture or appliances. In addition to the remote-controlled incandescent lamp and a round dial hanging on the wall, there was a plastic tube extending from the wall and a surveillance camera flashing red light. Someone was watching him. "What do you want to get from kidnapping me?" "Money," Harry asked the camera, but after waiting for a few seconds without any response, he kicked the iron door hard to vent his anger. Harry sat down against the wall in frustration. His forehead was throbbing because it was broken. The turbid and dark air in the room oppressed his lungs and spirit. His hand hidden in the corner of the wall stroked the miniature compressed gas tank hidden in the cuff of his suit. If the Gotham Police Department couldn't find him, this might be his only hope of escape. The compressed gas tank was filled with anesthetic gas, and the stock was almost enough to fill the room. Harry, who had been injected with sobering agents, was immune to most of the world's anesthetics. Although the disadvantage was that medical anesthesia was ineffective on him, it was just right in this situation. He only needs to wait for someone to come find him, and maybe he can find a chance to leave, provided that there are not too many kidnappers. When in an extremely quiet space, any sound will be infinitely amplified, such as the footsteps approaching outside the door and the rubbing of keys and door locks. Harry quickly stood up from the ground, dust stuck to his black suit and golden brown hair, and the wound on his forehead was exposed to the air. These made him look particularly embarrassed, but Harry would not sit on the ground pitifully and wait for the enemy to show mercy. With a crisp sound of unlocking, the heavy iron door was gradually pushed open. A man in a suit, thin, and wearing a hood of unknown material on his head walked in from outside the door. The hood that only exposed his eyes looked a bit like messy straw, but it was much more terrifying than straw. It gave Harry a feeling of a serial killer that would appear in a horror movie. "Who are you?" Harry touched the miniature compressed gas tank on his cuff vigilantly. The man seemed a little bit unbelievable. "Harry Osborn, as the son of Norman Osborn, a Gotham man, you don't know me." He turned around and closed the door again, then walked in front of Harry. "I am Fear." He introduced himself like this: "I am Fear itself." Harry looked at the tattered hood in front of him, and suspected that he had heard something wrong, but, "It doesn't matter, it's not important. What do you want to get from kidnapping me?" "Kidnap? It's not me who kidnapped you, I just happened to meet you." The man with the hood denied kidnapping Harry. "But I do want something from you." "What?" "Your fear." "I'm never afraid." The man with the strange hood shook his head. "Anyone will be afraid. Do you want to know what Norman Osborn is afraid of?" Harry frowned. He recalled what he was listening to Bernard said before the car accident. The Scarecrow and the Joker. Maybe one of them has something to do with his father. "Are you the Scarecrow, or the Joker?" Harry asked. "Scarecrow, I knew you must have heard of me. After all, your father should be impressed by me." "Aha, a psychopath who escaped from a mental hospital. What did you do to my father?" "It's just a little bit of fear gas." The Scarecrow took out a test tube from his pocket, which contained a beautiful orange liquid. "Look, it's a concentrated fear gas solution made from the sweat your father secreted when he was extremely scared." Harry suddenly remembered the experimental plan on his desk, about the relief and treatment of fear gas and laughing gas. "I have to say that the fear gas made from your father's fear sweat is the most effective one I have ever made, but unfortunately there's only this tube left now." The Scarecrow's tone was very regretful, but he changed the subject. "But now we still have you, little Osborn. I believe you must be as good as your father." "What exactly is fear gas?" Harry's hand has been staying on the miniature compressed gas tank, ready to decompress and open it at any time. But if the Scarecrow has an accomplice outside, he still can't run away by himself. "Do you know what your father is afraid of?" The Scarecrow said to himself. "When he was infected with my fear gas, he didn't scream like others." Harry's reason seemed to be shattered. What did the damn Scarecrow do to his father? He started to cry, and then he said to me, "Harry, don't die, don't take my son away, give him back to me, shut up." Harry gasped, as if he couldn't breathe, and stared at the Scarecrow with red eyes. But Harry was dead. Harry was dead. "Haha, good, that's it, little Osborn." The Scarecrow looked up at the time, 10:59 at night. "Just right, looking forward to your fear." Seeing that the Scarecrow was about to open the door and leave, Harry could no longer care too much. He turned the valve of the micro-compressed gas tank, and a large amount of concentrated anesthetic gas instantly burst out from behind Harry. The pure white mist almost instantly filled the entire small space, and the Scarecrow was knocked to the ground by the extremely fast-acting anesthetic gas before he even pulled the door handle. Harry held his breath for a while. Although he was sure that he was basically immune, his body subconsciously chose a more favorable direction. The stopwatch on the wall clock ticked one by one. Harry struggled to get the iron door key from the Scarecrow, who fell to the ground, and then turned his back to the iron door and began to unlock it. When the second hand of the wall clock coincided with the top number 12, the time came to 11 o'clock in the evening, and a yellowish fog emerged from the plastic tube extending from the wall. Harry, who was facing the door, soon noticed the yellow gas mixed in with the pure white anesthetic gas. Damn, it was fear gas. Harry held his breath and focused on opening the iron door, but the damn key could never aim at the keyhole. Because of his nervousness, Harry's forehead broke out in a lot of cold sweat, stimulating his untreated wounds to sting. The Scarecrow fell to the ground and was surrounded by white and yellow fog. Then he suddenly began to twitch and screamed. Harry guaranteed that this anesthetic gas would make people fall into deep coma, but the Scarecrow's fear gas still worked in this situation. The Scarecrow was not immune to his own gas. Ridiculous. What should I do now? Harry could no longer hold his breath. His brain, which was already dizzy due to a mild concussion, began to lose vitality due to lack of oxygen. When Norman Osborn appeared in front of Harry with a look of being almost cut in half, the silver key fell from Harry's trembling hands. Father. Harry, you disappoint me so much. Harry wanted to deny it, but Peter, wearing a black Spider-Man uniform, appeared next to him again. Your father, he despises you and is ashamed of you. Chapter 17. After Batman found the room where Harry was imprisoned and blew open the door, yellow-white mist gushed out. It was fear gas and another unknown gas. Batman quickly pulled down a transparent breathing mask from his mask to completely block the obviously abnormal air around him. He carefully pushed open the door in front of him. In the dim little room, Scarecrow collapsed to the ground and screamed unconsciously. It seemed that Scarecrow was poisoned by his own fear gas. This was strange, but there was something more important now. How could Scarecrow be so stupid as to step into his own trap? We can talk about it later. Batman looked for Harry Osborn in a thick fog of fear gas. He curled up against the wall, motionless and without making any sound. Batman squatted down to check on little Osborn, and at the same time pulled open the handcuffs that locked his wrists. After confirming that little Osborn's vital signs were still normal, he quickly held little Osborn in his arms and prepared to take him out of the room. Father. Batman felt his cape being pulled again, and then he heard Harry pleading in a low voice, "Don't go." Batman's movements froze for a moment, and then he subconsciously wrapped Harry's body in his arms. Little Osborn always reminded Bruce of himself many times, just like now. He had also seen his father in his fear after being poisoned by the Scarecrow's fear gas. When carrying little Osborn out of the room full of poison gas, Batman also kicked the Scarecrow who collapsed on the ground out. When Batman learned that Harry Osborn was kidnapped on the street, he immediately thought of Mike, who failed to assassinate Harry Osborn. Red Robin followed the surveillance video to try to track where little Osborn went after his disappearance. Almost all public areas in Gotham were monitored by the eyes of bats, but there were always some places that were difficult to reach by surveillance. The Ford van that took little Osborn away quickly drove into the harbor. Due to the sparse buildings, the surveillance there was not continuous, and there were even large gaps, so Red Robin quickly lost the trace of the black car. But it doesn't matter, the satellites that Wayne put into the universe have been repaired. Red Robin used the Batcomputer to access the Wayne satellite and found the fleeing car through the satellite image. It has deviated from the direction of the port to the East District. However, as we all know about the terrain of Gotham, there is one underground floor, one surface floor, and another floor on the roof. After the car drove into the underground tunnel, the satellite also lost its trace. Red Robin, find Mike. When Tim was urgently looking for the trace of little Osborn, Batman suddenly sent this message. Mike went to Osborn Building today. Tim first turned on the surveillance near Osborn Building. The surveillance video showed that Mike left the company in the afternoon and then went to the East District. Very good. Mike also disappeared in the underground passage of the East District. B. Mike and his bodyguard disappeared in the underground passage of the East District, and little Osborn was also taken there. It seems that little Osborn was probably taken away by Mike's people. He needs to find Harry Osborn as soon as possible before little Osborn is killed. Batman and Robin went all the way to the East District. They first went to Old Jack's bar to threaten the bar owner. Where is Mac's underground hideout in the East District? Batman grabbed Old Jack's collar and pressed him against a greasy wall of the bar. I don't know. Old Jack shrank his neck, seeming to be extremely frightened. Robin pulled out a knife and stabbed it into the wall across Old Jack's face. Tell me everything you know. Old Jack seemed to be frightened by Robin's knife. He lost his voice for a short time, then raised his hand to touch the blood on his cheek. Under the Osborn Rescue Station. He closed his eyes and shouted out the location. Humph. Robin crossed his arms and raised his head and walked out first. Batman pursed his lips, threw Old Jack on the ground, and then walked out of the small bar. According to the time, it had been several hours since little Osborn was captured by Mac's people. The young man who was protected by him and pulled his cloak behind him last night may have turned into a cold corpse now. Batman swung his grappling gun and flew in the air of Gotham. He didn't want Harry Osborn to have an accident. He didn't want to see that lively and lonely young man walking on white sand and covered in sunshine disappear in the darkness of Gotham. Just like he didn't want any innocent person in Gotham to die in sin. Batman and Robin found the underground hideout of Osborn's rescue station smoothly. But unfortunately, when the two of them arrived, Mike, his bodyguard and two robbers, the four of them were lying on the ground with the wounds all over their bodies in unconsciousness. The hall of the underground hideout was full of bloodstains of the four of them. The most seriously injured was Mike, who needed to sit in a wheelchair. He lay on the ground dying. It's the fear gas of the Scarecrow. Batman quickly distinguished that they were affected by the fear gas of the Scarecrow. Under the influence of the fear gas, they regarded each other as something that frightened them, and then lost their minds and fought. Robin, notify Gordon, and then stay here to inject them with the antidote. They couldn't hold on for much longer. Even if they injected the antidote now, their nerves might have suffered irreversible effects. If it was the old Robin, he would not listen to this, But now his father's words come first. "Okay, but I will find you as soon as it's over." The scale of this underground den is not large. Batman went all the way to the deepest part and saw the tightly locked iron door. The Scarecrow with a hood was kicked out of the room, and the fear gas rushed out with a flowing air. The turbid yellow mist rolled around Batman and even surrounded his pure black cape. He was like a warrior walking out of the smoke. After closing the iron door with excellent sealing, the dense fear gas was blocked in that room. Batman first took Harry to another room that was completely uncontaminated and placed him on a large wooden table. A corner of Batman's black cape was still held in Harry's hand. He tried to pull it out, but failed. Little Osborn didn't know how long he had been in such a dense fear gas. In order to minimize the impact on him, he needed to be injected with an antidote as soon as possible. The antidote for the fear gas became a must-have item after Scarecrow escaped from prison. Batman skillfully pulled out a syringe from a compartment of his universal belt, cut open the suit on Harry's arm with a batarang, held his bare arm with one hand, and stabbed it into his blue vein with the other hand. Perhaps the antidote took effect quickly, or perhaps it was stimulated by the cold liquid. Little Osborn opened his eyes briefly. "Batman." His voice was hoarse as never before. Batman looked into Harry's gray-blue eyes, which seemed to be looking at him, but also seemed to be distracted. Then Harry's breathing began to quicken, as if he fell into fear again. "Harry Osborn." Batman grabbed his shoulders and tried to wake him up from the illusion of fear. Harry grabbed Batman's wrist and tried to refute the accusations from his father and friends that kept echoing in his ears. "I am not the shame of Osborn." Chapter 18. Gordon quickly led his men to the East Osborn Rescue Station. Mike, his bodyguard, and the two kidnappers were all detained by the Gotham Police Department for kidnapping Harry Osborn, even though they were still in a coma. Scarecrow was taken directly back to Arkham Asylum on the night he escaped from prison. Bernard also carefully took Harry, who was still uneasy even in a coma, back home. Before the Gotham Police Department arrived here, Batman and Robin had already arranged everything, just waiting for Gordon to take over. The whole thing was already anticlimactic. Since the kidnapping of Little Osborn, almost every one of them guessed that he might not survive. But whether it was Mike who first planned to kidnap Little Osborn or Scarecrow who intercepted later, they were more seriously injured than Little Osborn in this incident. Mike and his accomplices were not bad. They were calculated by Scarecrow, and there was no doubt that they lost more than they gained. However, Scarecrow's coma seemed a little strange to Batman. Scarecrow would not make such a low-level mistake of locking himself in the gas chamber by mistake. It could only be something that Osborn Jr. did. Batman recalled the scene when he saw Osborn Jr., who was curled up in the corner with his hands handcuffed behind his back, and at the same time, he almost lost his mind and became mentally fragile due to Scarecrow's fear of the gas. What could he do? Batman had found a way to take away part of the gas in the confinement room. Perhaps the reason why Scarecrow fell into coma for no reason was in these gases. While the Gotham Police Department was busy investigating Mike's underground hideout in the East District, Batman and Robin also took advantage of Mike's arrest to quickly rush to the Osborn Group building. Now is a good time to investigate the illegal human laboratory. On the first basement floor of the Osborn Group building, Batman turned on the infrared detector on his mask, but when the detector detected the parking lot originally located on the second basement floor, the test results showed no abnormalities. Robin also turned on the detector on the eye masks to observe the place carefully. The ground and walls here are isolated by metal that can block infrared detection. Batman nodded affirmatively. There must be an entrance here. If there is, Batman turned his head to look at the several closely arranged laboratories in the underground floor, thinking that perhaps the entrance is in a laboratory, and the researchers in that laboratory are likely to be in cahoots with Mike. When he visited the laboratory of the Osborn Group, Osborn's assistant basically introduced the research projects of all the laboratories in the underground floor. Batman looked at a laboratory in the corner, the neural proliferation laboratory. If Mike needs to bribe researchers to do research for him, then this research project is the only one in the entire underground floor that is related to the regeneration of severed limbs. The laboratory has been completely closed after get-off work, and only the pass in the hands of the researchers can open the laboratory door. But this kind of electronic lock is not difficult for Batman to unlock. It only took Batman 10 seconds to crack a simple electronic door lock. The laboratory is very tidy, and the research materials and research equipment are all neatly placed. Batman and Robin carefully explored the laboratory. Their goal is not any research results, but the inevitable mechanism that can lead to the next floor. Whether it was Mike or any other researcher, their knowledge of mechanisms was obviously not comparable to that of Batman or Robin, so Robin, who opened the material cabinet, easily found a staircase going down. With such a blatant passage, it was obvious that all the researchers in the entire neural proliferation laboratory were involved in the underground experiment. B found it. When Batman looked over from the other side of the laboratory, Robin had already jumped down first. Robin. Batman was always worried that Robin would encounter danger in a place he couldn't see, but he couldn't stop any of his children from willingly devoting themselves. Damian might not be worse than any of the previous Robins, but Batman still followed him closely. Before Batman arrived, a panicked scream sounded, followed by a dull gunshot, which seemed to be equipped with a silencer. After Batman rushed in, he saw the researcher in a white coat under Robin's feet, and a pistol fell at Batman's feet. The researcher had been kicked unconscious by Robin, so Batman had to focus his attention elsewhere. Not surprisingly, the underground parking lot was not filled up as Osborn's assistant said, it was still an empty space. The whole space was surrounded by bright lights. The transparent glass walls neatly divided the place into several rooms of different sizes. In the middle room was a metal laboratory table. A pale, sunken-cheeked, one-armed man was lying naked on it. It was the homeless man who disappeared this month. Before he disappeared, he only had a broken left arm. Batman looked at his missing left arm, his mouth tightly pursed. He's still alive, but his arm was cut off. Robin's tone was not very good. He might not care about these things, but his father did. I have contacted Commissioner Gordon and Gotham Hospital. Red Robin's voice suddenly appeared in the internal line. Batman took out a USB flash drive he carried with him and walked towards the main control room, ready to pack up all the information of this illegal laboratory and take it away. During the data transmission process, he saw the data of the people who disappeared in the past 2 years and the experiments they underwent. 23 people, only the homeless man who disappeared recently is still alive. Batman frowned and continued to look at the data stored here, but he found an unexpected hidden folder. The name of the folder was Harry Osborn. Little Osborn has always been Mike's target, so it might not be surprising to find a folder with Little Osborn here. Despite thinking so, Batman still followed his heart and put the folder into the copy task exactly as it was, and clicked it to browse it roughly. After clicking in, he saw the full title of the file, Hypothesis of the Osborn Family Genetic Disease Pathogenesis and Genetic Disease Stimulation Plan for Harry Osborn. When Harry woke up again, he was already lying in his room, and Bernard was sitting beside the bed worriedly. Bernard, who had been paying attention to Harry, noticed Harry's awakening at the first time. Master Harry, are you okay? Harry felt a little dizzy, but felt unexpectedly sober. He seemed to see his father and Peter. I'm fine, Bernard, can you tell me what happened? Bernard didn't know what Harry had experienced, so he could only tell Harry everything he knew. A few hours after you were kidnapped, Batman found you in the basement of the rescue station under Osborn's name in the East District, which is said to be Mike's territory. When I and the Gotham Police Department arrived there, you had already been placed on the sofa in the lounge of the rescue station. Batman. Harry suddenly remembered being held in his arms. He leaned on Batman's hard chest armor, and the black cape wrapped him, completely blocking the turbid poison gas. Even if it was just a vague memory, Harry still felt a full sense of security. He saved me again. Harry's mood was very complicated. He should thank Batman, but he didn't want to be able to only pray for Batman's rescue in his heart when he encountered danger in the future. He is Harry Osborn, and also the second-generation Green Goblin who inherited his father's title, not a coward who can only hide behind a hero when he encounters danger. If he can see his father's soul again after death, he hopes that his father can give him a hug and say, "Son, I am proud of you." Instead of looking at him coldly as in the hallucination, as if he was a borer of Osborn. Bernard, I remember that the Osborns have a basement. Yes, why do you ask that? Help me transform it into a laboratory and a weapons manufacturing room. I will prepare a list of the equipment and materials that need to be prepared for you. Okay. Bernard would always agree to any request from Harry, as long as Harry would not be harmed. Harry wanted to replicate the strengthening potion. At the same time, he wanted to build a Green Goblin skateboard and pumpkin bomb by himself, as well as micro-missiles and micro-machine guns that could be loaded in the skateboard. The version of the pumpkin bomb can be completely updated based on the existing materials. Before, Harry had always used genetic diseases and the limited remaining lifespan to stop himself from pursuing power. But now, he can no longer stop himself. Even if it is just to protect himself and Bernard, even if his lifespan is limited. Harry tried to convince himself that it was precisely because he could die at any time that he did not have to worry too much about the side effects of the strengthening potion. Even if he unfortunately failed this time and became unable to control his thoughts and actions and completely became a demon. Well, this still needs to be worried about. Perhaps before transforming his body, he should find someone who can subdue the Green Goblin just in case. The moment Harry had this idea, the figure of Batman first appeared in his mind, a trustworthy, capable, and reliable superhero. After having the basic idea, Harry turned his attention back to the kidnapping incident. Bernard, what will happen to Scarecrow? Scarecrow has been sent back to Arkham Asylum for strict supervision. Bernard seemed not satisfied with this, and Mike and the robbers who kidnapped you, they were taken away by the Gotham Police Department. Mike was taken away by the Gotham Police Department? Will Mike be sentenced? Harry was not worried about whether Mike would be punished by law. He just wanted to know how to carry out his revenge. I don't want to let him get away with it so easily. He promised Harry that he would definitely avenge him. Master Harry, you have to know that there are always many ways to kill a person, no matter if he is in the White House or Gotham prison. It was obviously just a simple sentence, but Harry still understood what Bernard meant. No matter which prison in Gotham, there is no loophole. Even if Mike was sentenced, Osborn still had countless ways to prevent him from leaving the prison. You are right, Bernard. Chapter 19. Robin went back to his bedroom to rest because he had to go to school the next day. Red Robin hadn't slept for 2 days and 2 nights, and was forcibly taken away from the Batcave by Alfred. The Batcave, with only Batman left, seemed quiet and empty. He walked to the analyzer, injected the gas he brought back into it, and started the instrument. He then walked to the Batcomputer and inserted the USB drive that copied the underground laboratory data into it. Bruce opened the file copied from the underground laboratory. He was in a hurry before, so he just glanced at it, but he was already scared enough at that time. Genetic disease stimulation plan for Harry Osborn. The Osborn family has been cursed for generations. The reason why Norman Osborn has achieved his current achievements in biological sciences and medicine may be that his original intention was to solve the genetic diseases of the Osborn family. This also explains why the central research direction of the Osborn Group has always been on the cure of genetic diseases. Obviously, Norman Osborn failed, and he still died of the genetic disease he had studied all his life. This document records in detail all the characteristics and induction methods of the genetic diseases of the Osborn family that Mike knew, and even records how he arranged for people to destroy Harry Osborn's body in the past 2 years. First of all, the characteristics. The existence of this disease is not silent. When it wakes up from an Osborn's body at a certain moment, it will gradually erode an Osborn's body in the form of a green pus, from the skin to the internal organs. It is unavoidable and incurable until death. Green pus? Bruce suddenly remembered Harry wearing a torn sweater in the alley that night. The strange scar on his chest, is that the genetic disease of the Osborn family? And the swimsuit party that followed was held by Harry to lure out the people who used the genetic disease to harm him. Bruce clenched his right hand. He had pressed the wound on the chest of little Osborn with his hand. No wonder the little Osborn who was thrown to the ground by him did not push him away at the first time, but just looked at him angrily with his wet gray-blue eyes. Because it hurts. Bruce took off the bat mask and frowned while browsing the information. If Bruce had not seen the records in this information, he might have sighed because of the little Osborn's easy gullibility. They took advantage of an 18-year-old boy's desire for his father's love, his silent rebellion, his unbearable loneliness, his sympathy for the weak, and his arrogance to lead him to death step by step. Bruce kept comparing this induction plan with the past experiences of little Osborn that he had investigated, and found that the time when little Osborn's life became increasingly chaotic coincided with Mike's plan. Mike's plan was successful, and Harry Osborn's illness had reached a point where it could not be delayed. But the records in this file are still continuing. Harry, who knew his physical condition, planned to make a will, which made Mike unable to wait for Harry's death with peace of mind, so he planned to continue to stimulate Harry's illness. In addition to the drug, Mike even found a few other sick men to insult Harry. If he hadn't arrived that day. Mike's underground laboratory has been discovered, and he and his underground team will be responsible for the 22 innocent deaths and the homeless man whose left arm was cut off. Gordon will also find this file in the computer in the main control room, and Mike will pay the price for what he did to little Osborn. But the damage has already happened. The 22 people who died will never come back. The tramp's left arm is lost forever. Harry Osborn, who is pushed to death, can no longer refuse death. Bruce sat in front of the computer in silence, thinking that maybe Batman still didn't do enough. At this time, the analyzer was flashing not far away. Bernard had begun to secretly prepare the laboratory and weapons research and development room for Harry, and Harry also listed the materials he needed in a table and gave it to Bernard. Bernard looked at the long list and fell into a brief silence. He hesitated for a moment and then asked, "Master Harry, are you sure that these gunpowders will not blow up the entire Osborn family?" "Don't worry, Bernard," Harry patted the butler's shoulder, and then continued in a brisk tone, "if it is not necessary, Osborn can even have nuclear bombs. As far as I know, your major in college is only applied physics, not nuclear physics." "Well, that's right." Bernard seemed to compromise with Harry's confidence. "Okay. I will prepare a set of protective clothing for you, by the way." "Thank you for your thoughtfulness, Bernard." After Bernard left, Harry took off his bathrobe and walked into the bathroom. Mike has been caught, and he doesn't need to rely on liquid skin to maintain the illusion of health. The brown potion has been prepared and filled the bathtub. Harry only needs to lie in it and wait for the liquid skin on his body to automatically decompose and return to liquid state. Harry completely sank his body into the warm potion. He closed his eyes and held his breath, and felt a long-lost tranquility in the water. But the calm was only for a moment. The fake skin on Harry's chest, neck, and right eye socket began to decompose after contacting the liquid medicine. The skin tightly grasped in the folds of the abscess slowly dissolved under the effect of the liquid medicine, and separated from the scar bit by bit, as if his own skin was torn apart forcefully, and the intense pain continued. Harry couldn't help but take a breath, and the bitter liquid medicine rushed into his throat, and a string of bubbles emerged from the water. The peeling process finally ended before the oxygen in Harry's lungs was completely exhausted. Harry sat up suddenly from the water and leaned on the edge of the bathtub to breathe rapidly. The scars on his body were exposed to the sun again. Harry wiped the water drops from the abscess on his chest and stood up from the bathtub. The brown water drops slid down his pale skin. The cleaning process was simpler than expected. It only relied on the interaction of the liquid medicine without the need for external interference. It was very convenient. But no matter how convenient it was, Harry didn't plan to use it again. Whether it was applying or removing, the whole process was enough to make people uncomfortable. Harry stood under the shower, letting the rapid and warm water flow from his head to his whole body, and the residual liquid on his body was quickly washed away. The mirror in the bathroom was completely covered by fog, and Harry's slender body disappeared in the hazy water mist. The green scar on his chest seemed to have expanded. When the experimental materials and weapons and equipment that Harry needed were continuously sent to the basement of the Osborn family, all the crimes committed by Mike were revealed, and he and his accomplices were arrested one after another. The black-clad bodyguard who had been following Mike, and all the researchers in the neural proliferation laboratory of the Osborn Group who were bribed by Mike, they almost participated in all of Mike's illegal activities, and were found by the Gotham Police Department as soon as Mike was arrested. The two robbers who kidnapped Harry on the street were found temporarily, and the degree of cooperation with Mike was not deep, but the kidnapping crime was enough for them to stay in Blackgate Prison for a long time. Old Jack, the bar owner in the East District of Gotham, was arrested as an accomplice to Mike's illegal human experiments. His son Bird was also wanted as an accessory to murder for what he did to Harry Osborn on Mike's orders. Harry's real target from the beginning to the end was only Mike. Old Jack, Bird and the kidnappers would all be punished by law, and Harry would not do anything extra. Mike, as the main culprit in the illegal human experiment and the murder of Harry Osborn, was imprisoned in Blackgate Prison as a disabled person after the court trial. After the incident was exposed by the media, it caused a great social impact, so the trial of the case was quite fast. Of course, the Osborn Group's behind-the-scenes dealings were indispensable. When the case was first disclosed, the reputation of the Osborn Group was strongly impacted, and the company's stock price fell all the way. But when the public learned that Harry Osborn was also a victim, the voices in the society condemning the Osborn Group quickly subsided. But none of this mattered. Mike's arrest was not the end for Harry. On the second night after Mike was transferred to Blackgate Prison, Bernard drove a black sedan that could be seen everywhere and drove Harry to the prison in a low-key manner. There are not many people in Gotham's government who are dedicated to serving the people. Even if some young people who have just joined the government are ambitious to change Gotham and make it brighter and better, they will eventually surrender to this muddy swamp after being frustrated day after day. For ordinary people, this phenomenon is definitely not a good thing, but for Harry at this time, it is a weapon that can be used. Harry is going to meet the warden of Blackgate Prison and ask him to take good care of his father's old friend. With the surname Osborn, Harry easily met the warden, Mr. Brown. In the warden's comfortably decorated office, Harry sat in a black leather chair next to the desk. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Brown." The warden, with a beer belly, sat opposite Harry and tried to straighten his back. "Mr. Osborn, it's my honor to meet you here. So, are you here to visit the prison? You know, today is only the second day since Mike transferred here." The warden asked tentatively. Harry curled his lips, took out a bank card, put it on the table, and slowly pushed it in front of Brown. "Mr. Brown, this is an anonymous bank card. The money in it is enough to buy the entire Blackgate Prison." The warden put away the card with a vigorous movement that was completely different from his body. "You want to?" Harry looked at Brown meaningfully and explained, "Mike is in poor health and will not live long." Brown smiled easily and tacitly, as if this request was very simple. "In fact, I had this feeling when I first saw Mr. Mike, who was transferred here. After all, prison is not a sanatorium where he can rest in peace." Things really went unexpectedly smoothly. It's not uncommon to see people doing this in Gotham. Bernard explained to Harry while driving, "The death penalty in Gotham is a mere formality. People with power always find shortcuts to seek revenge." "Really?" Harry answered absent-mindedly. He did not regret easily deciding Mike's life or death, but he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Quietly watching the night scene that was constantly receding outside the car window, Harry suddenly thought of Batman. "Bernard, I heard that Batman never kills people." "Yes, Master Harry. I don't know what he would do if he encountered such a thing. Perhaps it will be completely handed over to the law, judging from past experience." When Bernard answered, Harry suddenly realized that he had asked a question. "So, Batman and Spider-Man are superheroes, and the Green Goblin is just a product of satisfying his own selfish desires." Chapter 20. The preparations for the laboratory and the weapons research and development room were fast and slow. The laboratory was fine. After all, Osborn Group was doing this. Now the laboratory only needed to prepare the last few materials before it could start working. The preparations for the weapons research and development room were relatively more difficult. Those rare metal materials were easy to get as long as you had money. But gunpowder and similar explosives that were in great demand were really hard to get in a short time. By the way, Bernard sighed as he stood in the newly decorated basement. "Master Harry added uranium to the long list of weapons yesterday." "Master Harry, are you really going to build a small nuclear bomb in your basement?" Harry, who had just come to the basement to check the progress, was stunned for a moment, and then realized that it was the materials he added later that caused the misunderstanding. Uranium is an important raw material for the manufacture of nuclear weapons. Obviously, Bernard took his joke that day to heart. "Of course not, Bernard, those uraniums are just to build a durable power system for my skateboard. The Green Goblin skateboard needs to be driven by nuclear power, which is the most difficult part of all the Green Goblin equipment." "Sorry, were you talking about a skateboard?" "It's an extraordinary skateboard. The uranium will arrive in a month. Anyway, I look forward to your finished product." The production of the strengthening potion and the development of the Green Goblin's equipment have come to a standstill, but the good news is that the strengthening potion can be developed in a few days. Time can never be wasted, and Harry has to take advantage of the free time before his equipment starts to be developed to do some serious things. For example, his half-developed will. Because Mike's matter happened very suddenly, the appointment with the company's legal department to announce the will on Thursday was also unfinished. Now it has been a long time since the agreed Thursday, and Harry has not even finished writing the will he was going to make. Of course, this is not because the assets of the Osborn family are so rich that Harry cannot count them in a short time, but simply because he is stuck with the current situation in Gotham. Harry wants the Osborn family name to be glorious forever, and even if he dies, Gotham will remember and praise Osborn for a long time. This is not easy to achieve, So Harry wants to set up a public welfare medical foundation in Gotham in the name of Osborn. The initial activity funds can be completely provided by the Osborn Group, and the subsequent fundraising and operation can be handed over to the manager. However, as long as the Osborn Group exists, this foundation will never worry about funds. But in a place like Gotham, even if Harry personally watches it, he dare not guarantee that his money can be spent where it should be spent. If he dies, it will be even more difficult to say where the money will go. In order to achieve his goal of making the glory of the Osborn family everlasting, Harry has selected a partner and decided to invite the partner to dinner. It is better to do it on the same day than on the same day. Harry immediately asked Bernard to send an invitation to the Wayne family, but he didn't expect the other party to agree at once. Master Bruce, the Osborn family sent an invitation and said they want to invite you to dinner. Alfred handed Bruce an invitation letter. Use an invitation letter to invite. Bruce took the gold-plated invitation letter and took a look. Tonight. If you use an invitation letter to invite the other party, is it too hasty to set the time on that night? But who cares about this now? Bruce suddenly remembered that before Osborn Jr. disappeared, he had told him that he wanted to discuss a cooperation with him. This invitation should be for this cooperation. Did Osborn Jr. pay so much attention to the development of the Osborn Group even though he knew that he was going to die soon? Bruce couldn't help but think of the scars on his body and the speculation about this disease in the information. Agree to it. Bruce was also a little curious about Harry Osborn's cooperation. You know, these things have always been directly asked to Tim. Moreover, he really wanted to see Osborn Jr. again. Bruce thought calmly that his desire to pay attention to Osborn Jr. might mostly come from the fact that he was in a similar situation to himself in the past, and the rest came from the hand that pressed on the scar on his chest on the day of the swimsuit party. That night, Harry sat in the restaurant under the name of the Wayne Group, and the bodyguard stood at the door waiting for him dutifully. Although Harry didn't think he was so unlucky that he would encounter danger every time he went out, he still obediently brought a team of black-clad bodyguards. He raised his wrist to check the time. It was 8:20 in the evening. Bruce Wayne was already 20 minutes late. Is this normal? Harry suppressed his irritation, thinking that it was he who asked for cooperation, so waiting another 10 minutes wouldn't be a big deal. Just when Harry decided to leave, Bruce Wayne finally showed up. He was wearing a casual suit that wasn't very formal, and when he walked over, Harry could even smell at least 3 kinds of perfume on him. Does a playboy need to torture his sense of taste like this? Bruce Wayne walked over from the side, and with his keen observation, he noticed the green scars on the right eye socket and temple of the other party almost the moment he saw Osborn a little. His condition was getting worse, and Bruce felt a little sad for him. However, he still pulled the seat opposite Harry as if nothing had happened. Harry, I'm sorry I'm late. Harry? Harry's angry mood was stuck when he heard Bruce Wayne call him by his name directly. He suddenly remembered that they had called each other by their first names when they met last time. But Harry didn't want to pretend that nothing had happened and affectionately called the man opposite him who seemed to be late for a date Bruce. Mr. Wayne, maybe I should thank you for remembering that a friend is waiting for you here. Don't be like this, Harry, I promise there won't be a next time. Bruce looked at Harry innocently with his blue eyes that looked even more mysterious under the lights of the restaurant. Very good, he will be forgiven in the end anyway, Harry thought. Why should he waste his limited time on such things? Okay, Bruce. Bruce didn't have to be late, but Harry Osborn and Batman had several encounters. In order to prevent unnecessary suspicion, he decided to emphasize the difference between the two identities in front of little Osborn. He was only half an hour late because he was concerned about little Osborn's poor health. He had been prepared to do something to get the other party's forgiveness, but he didn't expect the young man opposite to compromise so easily. Harry, what's the matter with the wound on your face? Harry subconsciously reached out to cover the scar near his right eye socket, and then moved his hand away as if nothing had happened. The whole set of actions was a bit redundant and suspicious. Seasonal allergies, that's nothing. I know a good doctor, if you need it. Bruce thought, maybe the other party's disease can't be cured, but there's always a way to delay it. Harry curled his lips helplessly. If you remember what my family does. When it comes to medicine, Osborn is definitely more professional than Wayne. In fact, Bruce, this is why I asked you out. Bruce thought for a while. You mean, you want to reach a medical cooperation with Wayne Group? Why? Osborn Group wants to set up a medical foundation. You know, Gotham will always need this. Harry looked at Bruce Wayne opposite him. His expression was extremely serious. I studied the number of people seeking medical treatment and the cure rate in Gotham in previous years. I have to say, it's a worrying number. Bruce looked at Harry, who was explaining seriously, and didn't mean to interrupt him. A big part of the reason for the low cure rate is that Gotham's social insurance coverage is not high enough. Many people cannot afford the cost of surgery and medicine, and they have no money to treat their illnesses. Bruce, I know that Wayne Group subsidizes a lot of patients every year, but this is just a drop in the bucket for Gotham. Harry paused. I'm not saying that Wayne Group is incapable, but the number of people we can find who need help is always limited. We have to let those who need help take the initiative to find us. Bruce opened his mouth, and he suddenly didn't know what to say. Little Osborn, who had hardly experienced any warmth in the first 20 years of his life, was now forced to the point of death. What he had to prepare before his death was to help those who were completely strangers to him. He was different from himself. Gotham might be home to Wayne, but it might just be a city to an Osborn. Why do you do this? Bruce wanted to understand why Harry did this. Why? Harry had never thought about this question, but if there must be a reason. Because I am an Osborn. Maybe someone else wouldn't understand what Harry was saying, but Bruce understood. Harry Osborn's fear and his motivation for doing this. He still remembered what little Osborn said while he was lying on the large table in the dark basement, holding Batman's wrist tightly. I am not a disgrace to Osborn. At that time, little Osborn's eyes were red, and he seemed to be aggrieved and about to cry. Bruce thought that if he was Norman Osborn, he would never think that Harry was a disgrace, and he deserved everything good in the world. Harry, you surprised me. Bruce's expression was sincere and sighed. So, happy cooperation. Harry raised the wine glass in front of him. Bruce also raised his glass and clinked it with him. Happy cooperation. Except for Harry's illness, things have been moving in a good direction. The cooperation between Osborn Group and Wayne Group is temporarily handed over to Harry's assistant, Miss Felicia, who is a lady with excellent workability. The preparation of the laboratory has also progressed to the final stage. Harry can start to prepare the strengthening potion at any time. Although the preparation of the potion requires a process, the preparation of the materials is equivalent to half of the success. Harry has arranged almost everything, and he can test the potion with confidence. It was just an ordinary afternoon. Harry received a message from Blackgate Prison. Mike is dead. Not only the Osborn family received this message, but also the Batcave, which was paying attention to any changes in Gotham. Although Mike's leg was broken, he was in very good health. Tim looked at Mike's death report. It's only been half a month, and he died in Blackgate Prison. What's so worthy of attention about the death of such a scumbag? Damien was maintaining his knife on the side. The day after Mike was transferred to Blackgate Prison, Osborn went to see Brown. Bruce said in a deep voice about the clue he had just found, and Brown recently bought a seaside villa in the name of his wife. Harry Osborn bribed Brown, the warden of Blackgate Prison. Chapter 21. Mike is dead. When Harry heard the news, it was as if he had suddenly unloaded most of his burdens, and the haze that enveloped his heart dissipated in an instant. Patience is required to make strengthening potions. Harry put down the potion he was researching halfway, took off the white coat he wore for the experiment, and walked out of the laboratory. Bernard, who told Harry the news, was waiting for Harry outside the laboratory. Master Harry. Bernard's tone was no different from usual, as if the news of Mike's death could not cause any emotional changes in him, but Harry could see that he was more relaxed than a few days ago. Mike, who assassinated you, is dead, and the matter of the Osborn Group has come to an end. Should the research on the cure of genetic diseases be restarted as soon as possible? Harry paused. Bernard, do you really think there is a cure for this genetic disease? Norman Osborn studied it for his entire life, but still died of this disease without any solution. Bernard was no longer relaxed as before. We have to give it a try. You arrange it, Bernard. All Harry could do was to make an existing potion according to the steps. He knew nothing about medical research, and genetic diseases still depended on the team that had studied with Norman. Although Harry had no confidence in this, he could not refuse Bernard's concern. Harry had no hand in genetic disease research, and the production of enhanced potions could not be completed in one day. Today, I can relax a little. Since Harry began to plan revenge in the group's affairs, he has not drunk alcohol for a long time, in order to stay sober and live longer. Harry returned to the room and took out a bottle of whiskey from the wine cabinet and put it on the table. and froze ice cubes in the small refrigerator, then walked straight to the bathroom with a bathrobe. Maybe it was a psychological effect. Harry always felt that the scar on his chest would secrete a sticky and disgusting liquid, so he was used to washing his body at any time. The smooth mirror surface gradually blurred in the white mist. Harry stood under the shower, and the slightly higher temperature water flow washed over his body, washing away the dirt that might be real or psychological. Harry had never carefully observed the scars on his body. After each shower, he would just tidy up hastily and leave the bathroom quickly. But today, he carefully wiped the mirror stained with water vapor and faced his body in the mirror seriously. The large, uneven, green scars looked particularly abrupt on his thin body. Weak, pale, and ugly. He brushed his hand across the scars on his chest, causing a burst of stinging pain, and then gently stroked his neck. He felt like a strange egg with a strange monster hatching inside. His skin was the white eggshell, and the large green scars were the gaps on the surface of the eggshell that the hatching monster was trying to break. When the monster was completely hatched and the eggshell was broken, he would die. The wound near the eye socket became much larger. Harry leaned close to the mirror to observe. The marks that were originally the size of a cigarette butt were now the size of a coin. As expected, the condition was getting worse every day. Harry walked away from the mirror expressionlessly. Although he could now face his own death, he still couldn't face the weakness of his body. The scar at the corner of his eye could not be concealed, but Harry rarely let anyone see the scar on his body. His closet was filled with shirts and high-neck sweaters, and the low-neck clothes that could not cover his neck were all pressed under the closet. It was completely dark. Gotham's nights were always much colder than the daytime. Harry wiped his hair half dry and took out a slim-fitting high-necked black sweater to put on. After a simple tidying up, he could finally rest. The small quick freezer had already frozen ice cubes. Harry took out a frozen ice ball and put it into the glass. The golden brown liquor poured into the glass along the smooth surface of the ice ball. He stood in front of the table, holding the open whiskey bottle in one hand and the glass in the other hand, looking up and drinking the wine that had just been poured out. The smooth and cold liquor swirled in Harry's mouth and was swallowed. He didn't like drinking before, but he became addicted to alcohol after his father died. At that time, he wanted to find Spider-Man to avenge his father, but Spider-Man was elusive and his identity was a mystery. He couldn't find anyone to avenge his father, so he had to drink to relieve his grief over his father's tragic death and the inability to avenge him. Then Peter refused to tell him about Spider-Man, so he drank more frequently. But he was still able to control himself during that period. It seemed that he lost control the day he took off Spider-Man's mask. Harry walked to the terrace with a bottle and a glass of wine. Gotham at night is darker than New York. Logically, you should be able to see more stars than New York, but the sky in Gotham is too dark. The gloomy clouds hang over it day and night. Most of the time, you can only see the afterimage of the moon and the floating clouds. I don't know how Peter and Mary Jane are doing. Harry misses them a little. And Bernard in another world. Harry leaned back on the cool leather sofa on the terrace and poured one glass of wine after another. After living for more than 20 years, there are only 3 people worth remembering after death. Perhaps because he drank too quickly, Harry already felt a little confused in his brain, and there were many illusory double images in his vision. He wanted to put the glass on the table, but Harry, disturbed by the double images, let go of the glass before it touched the table, and the ice cubes and the glass shattered all over the floor. Harry lay down on the large sofa, and his bare feet trembled when they touched the cold leather sofa. He subconsciously curled up his legs to absorb some warmth. Harry's right hand holding the bottle of wine hung under the sofa, and the bottle almost touched the glass shards on the ground. How many people will be worth remembering if he dies for the second time? Gotham was relatively calm tonight. After finishing the night patrol quickly, Batman turned in another direction on his way back to the Batcave. Are you going to find Harry Osborn? Red Robin also followed him out tonight. Seeing the direction Batman turned, and thinking about the intelligence they had explored this afternoon, it was easy to come to this conclusion. You and Robin go back to the Batcave first. After leaving this sentence, Batman quickly disappeared in front of Robin and Red Robin. Harry Osborn bribed the warden to kill Mike. Batman couldn't tell what he felt. Maybe it was a pity for the young man who could have lied without any haze. Batman didn't mourn for Mike, but only for the soul of little Osborn. He shouldn't be like this, no one should be like this. Human life is a bottom line that should not be crossed. Outside the rules, no one has the right to trample on it. Bruce spent many years to understand and accept this, but little Osborn crossed a line. When the bottom line was lowered for the first time, it would be easy to take the second step. Little Osborn had endured a lot, and Batman thought that he had to at least ensure that little Osborn would always stay on this side of the line in the future. Harry Osborn was not anyone's responsibility, but Batman obviously didn't realize this at the moment. He just happened to see his once helpless self in little Osborn, and saw the brilliance worthy of respect in little Osborn, so he put him in his eyes. When he rushed to the Osborns' villa, he easily saw the young man drunk on the sofa on the terrace. The light in the room illuminated the terrace through the glass window. Harry curled up in the shadow cast by the back of the sofa. His bare wrists and feet were pale and dazzling against the dark night. His lips seemed to have lost their blood color due to the cold. The whiskey bottle he held in his hand was about to fall. This was not the first time Batman realized that little Osborn was weak, but it was the first time he saw the thinness of little Osborn's life. Batman stood in silence for a moment, and finally took off his cloak amid Harry's faint cough. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22. Batman held the cape with both hands and gently covered Harry lying on the sofa. He pursed his lips uncomfortably and suddenly wanted to ask himself what he was doing. But when he saw little Osborn's face was even paler wrapped in the wide black cape, he gave up the idea of taking the cape back. Harry was half asleep and half awake, still thinking about how many friends he would miss when he died for the second time. Bernard, who was carefully flipping through his notes under the golden light, first appeared in Harry's mind. No matter which world, Bernard was a very important family member to him. Is there anyone else? Apart from Bernard, is there no one worth a missing? Apart from Bernard, will anyone else miss him? When the slightly cool black cape covered his body, Harry opened his eyes in a daze, and darkness and even thicker darkness floated in front of his eyes. Batman. Is it an illusion? Batman covered him with his cape? Harry's slightly opened eyes closed again peacefully. Batman. Although he didn't know Batman's true face, he still felt an unprecedented sense of security in Batman. Standing behind him, it was as if he would never have to worry about being hurt again. If I had met you earlier, could the dead Harry have survived? Harry felt a little sour in the tip of his nose, and his chest suddenly felt dull and painful, as if he was pierced by two swords again. Physical health will affect the growth of genetic diseases, and mental oppression and emotional collapse will accelerate the maturity of genetic diseases. The contents recorded in the notebook suddenly appeared clearly in Harry's chaotic brain. On the chest covered by clothes, the green scars began to expand, as if they were going to occupy the entire chest. The scars on the neck also began to climb upwards, quickly spreading over the collar of the turtleneck sweater, and crawling out of Batman's black cape. These were just in the dark, and what was more clearly visible was that his pale cheeks began to turn blue. Harry whispered softly, and Batman listened quietly, but the sudden change interrupted Harry's words, and he began to pant rapidly. Batman watched the green mark spread on Harry's body with his own eyes. Harry Osborn. He squatted beside the sofa and approached Harry to shout, trying to wake Harry up. This was the first time Harry experienced a large-scale growth of a genetic disease. He only saw Harry curled up on the ground in pain when the genetic disease broke out in his memory, just like the time when he was disfigured by the explosion of a pumpkin bomb. His skin seemed to be burning, and his internal organs seemed to be surging. Harry thought he had excellent endurance, but he was still trembling with this sudden and dense pain. The almost empty whiskey bottle completely slipped from Harry's hand, and rolled on the ground twice with a crisp sound, and stopped beside Batman's black boots. Harry's hand hanging on the edge of the sofa was retracted into his cloak, tightly clutching the sweater on his chest. Fortunately, he had avenged Harry. Even if the ugly scars engulfed his body today, there was no regret. Harry Osborn. Batman's low voice sounded in Harry's ears. Harry tried to open his eyes, but under the torment of alcohol and illness, he could only open his eyes slightly while panting. A pale face, gray-blue eyes, and eye sockets reddened by pain. Harry's face was filled with various colors, each of which was illusory and fragile. As Harry regained consciousness and calmed down, the spread of the scars slowed down again, and the dense pain began to slowly subside. The alcohol also completely dissipated in the pain just now, As if the world covered with a layer of illusory filter became clear again, and Batman was squatting beside Harry with a grim expression. Harry struggled to sit up, and the black wide cloak slipped from his body. Harry reached out and gently pressed it. "Is it really you? I thought it was an illusion." His voice seemed a little happy. Batman's eyes stayed on the cloak pressed by the fingertips of little Osborn, and then moved back to Harry's face. "There seems to be something wrong with your body." He didn't come to say this, he came to persuade or warn Harry Osborn not to do wrong things again. But every time things involve little Osborn, it seems that there are always some unpredictable mistakes. Harry was not surprised to have such doubts when Batman saw him sick. "I'm just sick." Harry's voice was a little hoarse, but still not as deep as Batman's. Harry simply attributed the fatal genetic disease to illness. He didn't want to expose his pain to Batman or anyone else. The genetic disease was stimulated and began to expand much faster than expected. Harry thought that if it happened 1 or 2 more times, he might never be able to open his eyes again. Batman was elusive. Maybe this was their last meeting. For those who are important, you should say goodbye properly. In his previous life, he didn't have time to say goodbye to his dead father, and when he died in a hurry, he didn't say goodbye to Peter properly. At least this time, there will be fewer regrets. "Batman, maybe, are we friends now?" Harry didn't know if he was considered a friend by the other party. He didn't bring any help to Batman, but instead caused trouble everywhere. Maybe this friend was just his wishful thinking. Batman was silent. "It doesn't matter if it's not." Harry quickly added, "Nice to meet you. Where's your cape?" Tim, who had packed up his equipment and was continuing to search for clues about the Joker in the Batcave, yawned and looked at Batman, who had just returned. Batman had never lost his cape during an ordinary night patrol. Bruce, who was taking off his hood, was silent. "How is the investigation of the Joker's whereabouts?" "No progress. After separating from Scarecrow, the Joker has completely lurked. Tim has been looking for several days, but the Joker seems to have disappeared from the face of the earth. But they all know that this is impossible. The Joker must be lurking in the dark of Gotham, planning his despicable activities to give Batman an unforgettable blow." "Where's Harley Quinn?" "Still in Arkham Prison. It seems that the Joker didn't plan to take her with him when he escaped this time." Batman has never been a passive person, but there are always some enemies that you can't catch unless he jumps out to act, such as the Joker. Recently, the Red Hood has also been looking for the Joker's traces. Tim seemed to say casually. Batman didn't want Jason to fight the Joker, so he had to find the Joker before Jason and send him back to Arkham. "By the way, how is little Osborn?" Batman went to find little Osborn, and Tim was particularly curious about it. "You didn't do anything, did you?" No. Batman wouldn't do anything to a patient who could only sit up by leaning on the sofa. Little Osborn didn't seem to care about his death at all. He remembered what little Osborn said nonchalantly, "I'm just sick." What Batman cared about most was what Harry Osborn said in a daze after he covered him with a cape. "Batman, if I had met you earlier." Chapter 23. Batman doesn't need friends. To be honest, Harry was not surprised to get this answer. Isn't that the case for all superheroes? Peter didn't make friends with anyone casually under the identity of Spider-Man. No? At least not as far as Harry knows. In short, Batman must have his own life under the mask, and his friendships that are not separated by the dark uniform. Moreover, I heard from Bernard that Batman has many crazy enemies in Gotham, and maybe Batman also doesn't want to get him into trouble. Harry boldly guessed Batman's mood. After all, he left in a hurry after saying that, and even his cape fell off, so it's no wonder Harry thought too much. Even if Harry and Batman can't be friends, the Green Goblin can always be with Batman. Harry hung a cape stained with his own body temperature in his closet, and then went directly to the basement laboratory without even taking a shower in the bathroom. After a night of standing, the drug should have reacted. Physical health will affect the growth of genetic diseases. Harry kept remembering this sentence after waking up last night. If this is true, then the body-strengthening potion may have a certain degree of inhibitory effect on genetic diseases, and it is not impossible to directly alleviate the symptoms of genetic diseases. Since the evolution of human beings, at least 70% of the infinite potential of the body cannot be used normally, and the body-strengthening potion developed by his father is to stimulate the potential of the human body. The government tried to use this potion to equip an army of super soldiers, but they gave up this research halfway, so his father's experiment did not reach the level that can be used on the human body. But the father and son of the Osborn family used it on themselves, and as expected, all of them had side effects of varying degrees. But now is not a good time to discuss the avoidance of side effects. Among the potential stimulation directions of the body's strengthening potion, there happens to be the stimulation of the body's self-healing ability. With a comprehensive improvement of his physical strength and healing ability, even if he cannot achieve complete self-healing of genetic diseases, at least delaying the onset of the disease and death will definitely be no problem. Harry has to accept his fate of death, but life may not be so hopeless. The immature potion developed by his father has become his only hope for survival. Therefore, even if the side effects were 100% produced in the human body, he had no choice. No, there was still a choice. He could choose to give up using the strengthening potion in order not to bring danger to others, but, come on, even if Peter in another world knew about it, he would support his decision to use the potion. Harry perfected the strengthening potion bit by bit according to the memory in his mind. The clear and transparent green liquid took shape in Harry's hands step by step. He had read the experimental records of the strengthening potion. The finished products he and his father used were still in the stage of animal experiments. There was only an 1/8 probability of frenzy in mice, but in actual use, he and his father were affected by their personalities and spirits. Therefore, the probability of inducing side effects of this potion in animals and humans was different, but it could be used as a reference. Bernard, I need 16 mice for experiments. Harry put the dialed phone aside and held a tube of finished potion carefully in his hand. The clear and transparent green liquid reflected on Harry's pale face, making him look healthier for no reason. Okay, Master Harry, if you come to the restaurant for breakfast now, you will see them in the laboratory after you finish eating. Harry subconsciously glanced at the monitor on the wall. The standby screen of the monitor showed the time, 8:30 a.m. Time flies too fast. It was still dark when Harry came down. Bernard, prepare a cup of black coffee for me. The drowsiness and headache caused by the hangover came late. Harry carefully placed the potion on the shelf, rubbed his swollen forehead, and then hung up the phone. Harry was in a hurry to make the potion after Batman left, and obviously did not look carefully in the mirror to see what he looked like now. So Bernard, who was holding a maple syrup fruit pancake, spilled his breakfast because of his shaking hands when he saw Harry coming across. The pancakes with maple syrup fell all over Harry's slippered feet. Hey, Bernard, be careful. Harry didn't care about the syrup all over his feet. He took the empty plate from Bernard's hand, picked up the pancakes on the ground and brought them back to the kitchen, and dumped them into the kitchen trash can. Okay, breakfast. Harry came out of the kitchen and saw Bernard staring at him. What's wrong, Bernard? Bernard's eyes were complicated and sad. Harry. At this time, Harry's pale skin exposed to the outside was all stained with a layer of light blue, just like Norman Osborn on the hospital bed. Harry looked down at himself, and his eyes happened to look at the blue-white instep stained with maple syrup. The Osborn family's villa was at least heated, and he didn't feel cold, so this color was definitely not frozen. Oh. Harry realized what the result of the burning feeling on his skin was. It seems that the progress of the experiment needs to be accelerated. It would be ridiculous to die before the drug is developed. Harry walked past Bernard and walked backwards towards the laboratory. Bernard, please make another maple syrup pancake and send it to me in the laboratory, with more strawberries. And don't forget my black coffee. Bernard was still frozen in place as he watched Harry disappear into the corridor. By the way, Harry leaned out from the corner of the corridor. Bernard, don't worry. Bernard's stiff hands and feet relaxed a lot because of Harry's comfort. He returned to the kitchen silently and began to prepare the materials again. The 16 mice were soon sent to the Osborn family, and Bernard personally carried the cage down. Only Harry and Bernard knew about the Osborn family's secret underground laboratory and weapons research and development room. Harry built an open research room in the spacious courtyard of the Osborn villa as a cover. In fact, most of the experimental materials brought in were useless, and the useful parts were all sent underground. Especially in the weapons research and development room, all the materials in it, including gunpowder, were personally brought back from outside by Bernard bit by bit. Even the simple decoration of the basement was all in the charge of Bernard. Master Harry, here are the mice you asked for. Bernard placed the cage containing the mice on the laboratory table. So, do you want to have breakfast with the mice in the laboratory? Absolutely not. Harry prepared all the medicines for the mice and put them aside, then separated the mice one by one into different observation boxes. Harry had never done such an experiment before. He took a syringe filled with a little green liquid, raised a mouse, paused for 3 seconds, and then said, "Bernard, can you inject a mouse?" Bernard, of course. In fact, this liquid can also be absorbed by gas inhalation, which is much milder, but it is still a bit time-consuming to prepare a sealed observation box for Harry to use from the beginning without anyone noticing, so Harry decided to use the injection method this time. The pain of the process is nothing, anyway, the effect is exactly the same. Bernard successfully injected the first mouse with a medicine, and then quickly put the mouse back into the observation box with Harry's reminder. The little white mouse curled up in pain, making sharp cries. "Master Harry, what kind of potion is this?" Harry held his hands nervously. "Keep watching, Bernard." The camera dutifully recorded the experiment. The little white mouse suddenly stopped screaming at a certain moment, and then rammed the observation box crazily. When the box was made, it was specially made into double-layer bulletproof for the safety of the experiment. However, little white mouse number 1 broke through the first layer after only 3 collisions. Similarly, it also died in the crazy collision. The power becomes stronger, and it also becomes crazy. Bernard looked at Harry in shock. "What is this?" "Strengthening potion." Bernard handed the second one to Bernard, and the experiment continued. When the first little white mouse died from the crazy collision, Harry had a hunch that this experiment would not go smoothly. Sure enough, only 8 of the 16 little white mice did not have obvious violent symptoms. In his father's experiment, only 1 of the 8 little white mice showed negative effects. A failure rate of 1 in 2 is too high. The strength has been increased by at least 8 times, and the recovery ability has been significantly improved. But the side effects are somewhat fatal. Bernard seemed to understand what this potion was going to be used for. "Master Harry, are you going to inject yourself with this potion?" Bernard didn't want to see Harry fall into madness, but the recovery ability stimulated by this potion for the body might be enough to contain the genetic disease, but this drug has not even been tested on humans. "We don't have time, Bernard." Harry carefully washed his hands at the door of the laboratory and disinfected them 3 times with alcohol spray, "and I don't want this potion to be discovered by anyone, it will create demons." "What about you?" Harry pushed open the door of the laboratory and saw the breakfast placed in the leisure area outside. He picked up the cold coffee and drank it all in one gulp. Considering that the experiment does have the possibility of failure, Harry has not started the research and development of the Green Goblin weapon. Harry plans to start making weapons after injecting himself with a potion. The Green Goblin without equipment is at best a superhuman with greater strength and stronger recovery ability, and will not cause large-scale chaos in a short period of time. In addition, he needs a reliable restrainer. When he can control himself, the restrainer will restrain him. The restrainer must have a strong physique, sufficient strength, and a steady and decisive character. When he loses control, whether it is tying him up or imprisoning him, isolate him in a space where he cannot hurt others. During this period, do not use him to do anything bad, do not conduct any research on his body, and if possible, protect his safety and awaken his mind. If he must be imprisoned by someone, Harry has only one option in his mind: Batman. Of course, this is only the worst-case scenario. At present, the situation is not bad enough to be 100% out of control. Chapter 24. The plan was like this, but why did Batman have to follow his plan? Not to mention that he had no way to contact Batman for help. Harry slumped in a chair in the laboratory, facing a clear green potion placed on a huge shelf in front of him, making the whole space seem a little empty. The mice used in yesterday's experiment had been cleared out by Bernard. According to the results of the experiment, this strengthening potion now has only a half success rate. If he had time, he might be able to find a few trustworthy researchers to continue the research, and the subsequent troubles could be solved slowly, but the problem was that he didn't have time to improve the potion. Since it was impossible to return the potion to the stage of equation and redevelop it to increase the success rate, he could only bite the bullet and try it. It must be okay. He had used this potion once. Harry couldn't even figure out why he dared to operate the inhalation by himself the first time, completely ignoring the consequences of failure. Harry recalled his mood at the time. Maybe it was because he was too angry, thinking that he was deceived and betrayed by his best friend, so he used that dangerous drug on himself regardless. Can't think about it. Harry felt a latent illness start to stir again. He tried to calm down and change his mind. Now he should consider how to find Batman. Who can contact a masked vigilante? The bat light on the roof of the Gotham Police Department? Harry bets that Gordon won't let him use it. Or, if there is a big explosion at Osborn's house, maybe it can attract the bats wandering the streets of Gotham at night, but he doesn't want to blow up his own house, nor does he want to blow up anywhere. Besides, if Batman is busy with other things, it would be bad to disturb him. Ever since Harry fell into the hands of Scarecrow and was rescued by Batman last time, Bernard has been explaining to him the madness of Gotham villains and the significance of Batman to Gotham. Compared with Dr. Octopus and Sandman, Gotham's criminals are crazier, more disordered, and more inhumane. He doesn't want Batman to be distracted by his unintentional actions when facing criminals, although this is only a small probability event. Hey, he has never considered anyone like this. If he had been so considerate when he was with Mary Jane, maybe. Never mind, Peter and Mary Jane are more suitable. I hope they can be together and miss him together occasionally. As for Batman, so far, they have only met a few times. But every time they meet, Harry seems to be in a mess. The first time they met, Batman saved him from 3 people with bad intentions. Harry still remembers how desperate he was when he was pressed down in a dirty dark alley and his bare skin was pressed against the rough and cold ground. The second time they met, Harry asked Batman why he came to kill him, and then Batman protected him behind him when the real killer came. And the third time, he was poisoned by Scarecrow's fear gas and huddled in Batman's arms in panic. Not to mention the fourth time, he was like a drug-addicted alcoholic. The more Harry thought about it, the more desperate he became. Batman saved him many times, but in Batman's eyes, he might not even have a normal image. Harry, who is very regretful, collapsed on the chair with his forehead covered. When the hand blocking his eyes moved away, Harry saw the green potion in the middle of the empty shelf in front of him. He had thought about too many messy things. Now he should think about how to contact Batman normally. Should he use the dumbest method to wait in the East District of Gotham at night? An Osborn can't do such a thing. Just as Harry was thinking hard, a piece of gossip that he had glanced at before suddenly appeared and kicked Harry's brain. Bruce Wayne's love, hate and resentment, Batman. Gotham's Gossip Weekly seemed to say that Bruce and Batman were having an affair. Could it be true? Bruce had so many gossips. Obviously he was a playboy who had been in love for a long time. Batman wouldn't like this, right? But when he thought of Bruce Wayne's blue eyes that seemed to contain countless beautiful things, he suddenly wasn't so sure. Who could refuse him? Harry took out his mobile phone with a gloomy face. He had exchanged contact information with Bruce Wayne, so it was convenient to ask the person involved about gossip directly. If it was true, he could just contact Batman through Bruce Wayne, but it was hard for Harry to say whether he wanted Batman to be related to Bruce Wayne at this time. Harry took out his cell phone and checked the time out of habit. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. Even the Prince of Gotham should be up at this time. The phone rang for 55 seconds, but no one answered. Harry called again with a blank expression. After a long time, the call was finally connected, and Bruce Wayne's hoarse and magnetic voice came from Harry's cell phone. Harry. It sounded like he was still confused after waking up. Bruce, can I ask you a question? Harry asked very bluntly. Bruce Wayne, who was shirtless on the other side of the phone, sat up from the bed. He leaned against the headboard and rubbed his forehead, which was swollen and painful due to staying up too late and lack of sleep. Of course, I'm glad you called me. What do you want to ask? Do you know Batman? Bruce was completely awake. Of course, you know, I funded the Justice League, and Batman is a member of the Justice League. Justice League? Sorry, Harry doesn't know. I mean, Harry seemed a little hesitant. Well, that is, are you on good terms with each other in private? Harry emphasized again, privately. What kind of privately? Bruce felt that his swollen and painful nerve seemed to be starting to stir. Privately, Bruce paused meaningfully, not very familiar. What does that mean? Harry's mood was up and down, but he didn't quite know what he was thinking. Maybe he didn't want Bruce to become friends with Batman before him. He defined his bad mood in this way, just like Peter making friends with others behind his back. Although Peter never did that. Okay, Bruce, can you help me make an appointment with Batman, since you know each other? Make an appointment with Batman. Bruce leaned against the head of the bed and thought, did he want to return the cape to him, or something else? Yes, make an appointment with Batman. Maybe you can tell me why you want to find Batman. Bruce couldn't think of anything that would prompt Harry Osborn to contact Batman through Bruce Wayne, especially after he rejected the young man's friendship in person. Harry hesitated. He hadn't figured out how to explain to Bruce Wayne before he called him on impulse. Actually, I'm in danger, and only Batman can help me. Rounding off is not a lie. He is indeed in danger of death, and needs to be injected with dangerous drugs to save his life, but it's not him who needs Batman's help, but the citizens of Gotham who may be harmed by the Green Goblin, and Bernard. Can you help me, Bruce? Harry slowed down his tone. The refreshing and pleading words of a 20-year-old sickly young man came out clearly and word for word from Bruce's phone. Batman, I need him. Chapter 25. Bruce agreed to Harry's request. He would bring Harry's words to Batman, but he did not guarantee that Batman would go. Thank you, Bruce, you are a good man. Harry felt sorry for his dark mentality of competing with the other party secretly, and praised the other party directly. Bruce, who was praised as a good man, hung up the phone with mixed feelings. He could not sleep. Little Osborn did not know why he was looking for Batman, but it was definitely not because of the reason he said that he was in danger. And the cape? Bruce did not think it was because of this. It must not be so simple to let little Osborn find Batman through Bruce Wayne. Although it is not certain that Batman will come, Harry has begun to look forward to it. Maybe he is looking forward to getting stronger by injecting the medicine and getting rid of the nausea, or maybe he is looking forward to meeting Batman. The preparations for injecting the medicine should be done in advance, such as finding a tough rope to tie him up at that time. This kind of thing still needs to be prepared by Bernard. Harry walked out of the laboratory in a rare good spirit. In the morning, Bernard usually watered the greenery in the courtyard. Originally, Bernard was not responsible for this kind of thing, but they were worried that the laboratory and weapons research and development room in the basement would be discovered, so they fired many people, so Bernard is really busy now. Harry even considered whether they should lock most of the rooms in the villa, so that they don't have to clean it specially. But Bernard rejected this thoughtful proposal and said, Master Harry, are you looking down on a professional housekeeper? Harry regretfully gave up the idea of locking the unused rooms and chose to hire a housekeeper to clean them regularly. Guessing that Bernard would be in the courtyard, Harry walked towards the Osborn family garden with a clear goal. His footsteps stepped on the flat and neat grass, making only a very light sound. Bernard's figure gradually appeared among the carefully trimmed green trees. I hope you can hurry up and get ahead of the police. Bernard seemed to be on the phone. The watering pipe for watering the flowers was now lying at Bernard's feet. Harry stopped and prepared to wait for Bernard to finish the call before approaching. But what did Bernard say about getting ahead of the police? Although curious, Harry did not continue to approach. Soon, Bernard hung up the phone. Before Harry could speak, Bernard broke the old flip phone and threw it into the bucket beside him. Bernard, what are you doing? Harry called Bernard's name and walked towards Bernard. Bernard, who was wearing a neat suit, turned around and saw Harry, but he just smiled and didn't answer Harry's question directly. Master Harry, judging from your expression, do you have any good news? Bernard seemed to have gotten to know Harry very well without realizing it. It's not good news, but Batman is likely to come. Harry didn't realize that his tone was almost exultant. We can ask him to watch over me while I inject the potion. I can do that, Master Harry, Bernard disagreed. Batman did save Harry, but Bernard didn't trust anyone except himself when it came to Harry's problem. I believe you won't hurt me anyway. I'd rather believe I won't, but Bernard, I don't dare to bet. You know, I can't lose you. I can't lose you either. Bernard took care of the dust and mist he had gotten from watering, and didn't hug the young master who was starting to feel depressed again. So, is that what you came to me for? More than that. Harry remembered his purpose. We need a rope that can tie me up tightly. It's a little too late to prepare the restraint device now, but a strong rope still needs to be prepared. Thinking of the little white mouse that was banging against the glass crazily in the experiment, Bernard agreed to this idea even if he didn't want to see Harry tied up, for Harry's safety. I'll find a rope that won't make you too uncomfortable. No need, Bernard, it's more important to lock up a madman with great strength. Harry even thought that it would be okay to use chains. He said his idea while thinking this, maybe we can consider iron chains. No. Bernard thought that it was not possible. Okay. Time passed quickly. When the sun was setting and the sky was about to darken, Harry was waiting on the terrace early. Batman came to him from the terrace the first 2 times. Harry thought that the other party would not go through the front door this time. Bruce hadn't put on his black bat suit yet. He planned to go to Osborn's house before the night patrol to see what little Osborn wanted to do. After the matter there was resolved, he would go on the night patrol. This was his plan, so he said this to the other 3 people in the Batcave. "It doesn't matter. I'll follow you." Robin asked himself to go to Osborn's house with Batman. Batman didn't want to go. He subconsciously resisted Damian's idea of going with him. "You stay in the Batcave." "Why? We can go directly from Osborn's house to the night patrol." Damian didn't expect to be rejected. No reason. Tim was still frantically looking for the Joker's trace. His recent time was almost spent here except for going to work at Wayne Group. And Alfred also returned to the backstage to escort the night patrol of Batman's house. In short, Batman set off to Osborn's house alone. Not long after dark, there were still several hours before the night patrol began. Robin was training in the Batcave with his knife, and he seemed to be a little angry. "Although this is not appropriate," Tim said while using the Batcomputer to obtain the satellite permissions launched by Wayne Group. Batman's figure jumping between high-rise buildings appeared on the screen of the Batcomputer, but who can't be curious about why Batman must go to the appointment alone? Alfred stood over with a smile on his face, and even Damian, who was waving the knife, put it down. "That's right, who can't be curious?" Harry sat on the black sofa on the terrace in a loose white shirt, this time without a bottle of wine. All the lights on the terrace were on, illuminating the place like daytime. To be honest, Harry felt a little silly. He was hesitating whether to turn off half of the lights. It was pitch black around him, making this place look like a bright target. Just as he stood up and prepared to turn off the lights, a dark figure appeared behind him, and the shadow illuminated by the light appeared at his feet. Even though he knew it was most likely Batman, Harry was still scared. He made no sound at all. Harry turned his head in shock, and only felt completely relieved when he saw Batman. "You looking for me?" The ordinary question sounded like it was completely emotionless. Harry shook his hand nervously. He was not sure that Batman would agree to help him. "I'm glad you came. It seems that you have a good relationship with Bruce." No, Harry swore that he didn't mean to say that. Batman's mouth seemed to turn down a little more. Just looking at this expression, Harry guessed that he must have frowned. It would be better to get straight to the point rather than to start small talk, since Harry's friend request was just rejected by Batman the night before. "I need your help." Harry didn't wait for Batman to answer. He continued, "Maybe you can listen to it and decide whether to help me or not." "I'm going to die," Harry said calmly. Batman didn't even have time to figure out why little Osborn suddenly told him this, only to see that little Osborn had already started another action. Harry's pale and slender fingers with a bluish tint were placed on the buttons of his shirt collar, and he unbuttoned them one by one in front of Batman. I don't know if it was because of shame or something, but Harry's eyes, which were red because of his illness, seemed to be even redder. The 3 people watching in the Batcave were stunned when little Osborn started to unbutton. Tim's hand was on the mouse, hesitantly looking at the monitoring window, not knowing whether to close it in advance. "Drake, don't close it." Damian wanted to see what Osborn was going to do. On the terrace, Harry's actions continued. He unbuttoned the collar of his shirt all the way to his abdomen, then pulled open his shirt to expose his entire chest. It was torture for Harry to reveal his ugly scars to others, but he had to make Batman believe him. Batman, who had long known Harry's physical condition, guessed what he was going to do when Harry unbuttoned his shirt, but despite this, he was still shocked by what he saw. The strange green scars almost covered the entire chest of little Osborn. The scar on his neck spread upwards to his jaw, and almost connected to the scar on his chest. Thanks to the high quality of the Wayne Group satellite, the 3 people in the Batcave also saw this clearly, and they finally calmed down. Harry's entire body seemed to be devoured by this strange scar. This is... Batman didn't expect his physical condition to deteriorate so seriously. The Osborn family has a genetic disease, retroviral proliferation. Harry took over Batman's words and explained in advance, "In fact, my father has developed a drug, a semi-finished product, which may be able to save me." Semi-finished product? Yes. Harry wrapped the unzipped shirt back on his body, covering up those ugly scars and making him feel much better. "There is a 1 in 2 chance of extending life, and a 1 in 2 chance of becoming a violent lunatic. I need someone to look after me if I unfortunately lose my mind. I need you." The daylight surrounded the entire terrace, and little Osborn's gray-blue eyes became more and more moist. He looked at Batman, as if waiting for an important answer. When to use the medicine. Batman did not ask little Osborn why he had to be his son, but he had a high probability of guessing that he was trusted by Harry Osborn. Looking at Harry in front of him, who was looking at him expectantly, Batman could not imagine and refused to think about the other party losing his mind. There was a 1 in 2 chance of survival, and Batman hoped that little Osborn was in this 1 in 2. Now, end of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.